Shane, why you gotta start the morning off like that, man? Why you gotta do that to me?
I'm just relaying the facts.
No, I was in a good mood. No, you picked those, Shane. Come on, man. You could have stuck with the Greek Freak 64. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that was pretty solid.
Didn't have to start my morning off like that. Good morning. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio. See, you got me all flustered, Shane. I don't like it. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Elijah Herbal here with me this morning. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Early morning getting the drive up to Lincoln, but we got
you got like
32 ounces of coffee.
You got a big gulp of coffee. I can tell Andrew and I are usually energy drink guys. I can smell the coffee. I'm not a hot beverage guy.
Even in the wintertime?
Yeah, well, so I'll do it sometimes, but I had a traumatic experience as a youngster, and I got sick, and it was bad. So
I'm from a coffee family, and I like myself. Like, you got the White Monster going.
Yeah.
No free shout-outs, but that's a free shout-out.
That's my go-to, yeah.
The White Monster.
They have them at Costco, and so I can buy them in bulk.
I do like the White Monster.
They're pretty solid.
Gets you going. I like the smaller size, though, the 12-ounce one.
Oh, yeah, I'm too old for the small size. I don't have that natural, energetic youth in me anymore. No, it's, so long story short, I think I've told the story on air of when I got the stomach flu over Thanksgiving before. My dad, he's from India, and so they do like some like natural remedies and stuff like that. And so he used to give us fennel tea all the time when we got sick. Well, he gave me the fennel tea for the stomach flu, and the fennel tea came back up pretty aggressively. Ooh. And so hot beverages, especially tea. I can do coffee a little bit. I can do like hot cocoa, although not my go-to. Sort of a visceral reaction for me on the hot beverages. So.
And I come from a coffee family. If I did not drink coffee, and I have a
what does that mean? Do you guys like own scooters? What does coming from a coffee family mean?
No, like everyone in my family. My brother was diagnosed with some ADHD late in his life, later than most in his life. And he learned through most of his high school and college and early adulthood that he was like self-medicating with coffee.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that dude drinks coffee up until 10 minutes before he goes to bed.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculousness.
I might have some ADHD as well then, too, because I drink caffeine like all day, every day.
I got to cut myself off at 2, but like.
At 2 p.m.?
Or else I can't sleep at night.
Oh, my gosh. So you don't even drink caffeine by the time you get to your show?
No, I have to come. I really pound it like,
oh my gosh,
early in the day, midday, and then by 2 p.m. Maybe it's because I pound way too much early in the day, but by the time 2 p.m. rolls around, it's a weird cutoff point. 1:30, I will be fine at night. After 2 p.m., I'm gonna have issues.
Maybe I do have a problem. Anyway, you can listen to Elijah Herbal with Chris Schmidt every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. on Hail Varsity Radio. It's on all the same places that you can find this fine program. This morning, we've got a lot going on. I promise we won't just talk about coffee the whole day, although I'm sure we could. Brian on YouTube says Elijah's great-grandpa is Juan Valdez. That's what I was thinking. I was like, he keeps saying he's from a coffee family. Like, you just like really like coffee, or is there some sort of like heir to an enterprise here that I need to know about?
I wish.
In which case,
God, I wish
we will become fast friends. But we've got a great show for you here today. Lots going on with Nebraska football and transfer portal, recruiting, all sorts of stuff. And we actually have a special little surprise for you this morning. I'll start with the bottom of the lineup to tease you a little bit. At 9:45 to wrap up the show, we're going to talk with Bryant Appling. He is the head football coach at Buford High School in Georgia. And if you're like, why are we talking to a high school coach in Georgia? It's because he was Dylan Raiola's coach his senior year of high school. He's been at Buford for 18 years. He's been the head coach at Buford since 2019. Super successful guy and uniquely close to the Dylan Raiola situation. So we will talk to him at 9:45. Super excited to talk to Coach Appling. At 9, we will talk to Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Make sure the sky's not falling with all this Kyle McCord stuff. At 8:45, we'll see if we can make you some money this weekend with Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. And at 8, we're going to talk to Kent Pavelka, a little Nebraska basketball going on here because No other team in the state has played recently. We don't need to talk about it. Nothing happened last night at all. We can just move right on. No, we'll probably get to Creighton a little bit. I know all you Husker fans out there will love listening to me talk about how bad Creighton played last night. So we will do that as well. Also, we will hit the Hurrdat hot seat. I'll probably split it up today because we've got a busy show. But let's get started with the big news from yesterday. It feels very strange. The last few days, I've been on my phone way too much, more than normal, which is already too much. But Monday, you've got the Dylan Raiola stuff. Tuesday, you're trying to figure everything out. Yesterday, the Kyle McCord stuff drops. Kyle McCord apparently moving on from he was never committed to Nebraska, but it felt like he was. At what point in the day yesterday did you start hearing there might be trouble in the McCord camp?
About 3:30. So like we're preparing for our show.
Yeah.
And I catch wind of it around 3:30-ish. Yeah, maybe 3:45.
Okay.
And Schmidt and I have no conversation before the show regarding it because I'm not sure if I can believe this or not. Like it really did feel like up until yesterday afternoon, I don't want to call it signed, sealed, delivered, but it felt like it was a good sign just in terms of what McCord was feeling with that. And then 3:45, well, I'm not so sure anymore. There seems to be some sort of holdup. Mm-hmm. And then like the alarm bells started going off and I asked a question on the air and Schmidt kind of agreed with me, which made me think maybe he was hearing the same thing of just like the longer this drags on, the more you wonder why a guy like Kyle McCord hasn't just announced, you know what, my next stop is Nebraska. That was kind of the point I was at as the afternoon drug on yesterday afternoon. Just like, why hasn't he made the decision yet? We know he's already left Nebraska. Mm-hmm. It felt like as we were reading the tea leaves on Tuesday that, you know what, I think he's probably checking out Syracuse on a Tuesday evening, a Wednesday morning. And then as the afternoon drags on yesterday, you're not hearing any other teams that are going to be in play here. Maybe Rutgers, but it still sounds like Syracuse now is probably going to be the spot for Kyle McCord. You wonder, why hasn't he been able to make up his mind yet? And then the news drops at 5. Well, he's not going to be a Nebraska Cornhusker next season.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest question to me as this is all playing out is why, right? It seemed like everybody was on the same page. The Raiola stuff had already broken, although I do think part of it was I don't think the Nebraska staff wanted the Raiola stuff to get out when it did. I think that's certainly a factor. But what do you think happened? Because as we're reading the tea leaves here, it seems like they both knew about each other in that situation. Obviously, there's a connection from when McCord was at Ohio State and Raiola was committed to Ohio State. They must have crossed paths at the very least on visits and things like that. So there was at least some familiarity there. Where do you think this got off the rails? Because that's kind of the part that I'm trying to figure out. I have theories. I'm curious either if you've heard anything or what your theories are, because that's the one variable here that we don't totally understand, I feel like.
The question that I think you have to ask is the sky falling? Or is this just another domino falling, kind of cluing us into what's happening behind the scenes? I think that's the question that I am asking right now
that's a good way to put it.
Has the sky fallen and has Matt Rule completely lost it? Has he tried to swing too big and has he pissed off a guy in Kyle McCord and Kyle McCord's not coming? Or is this just another domino falling? Because I think back, and it's an interesting name that I think we're going to discuss later in the show here, to what Charles Thompson told us about Casey Thompson last spring whenever he sat down with
Jeff
Matt
Simpson.
Rule.
Yeah.
And Matt Rule apparently said, with you coming off the injury, if I were you, I would find a place to transfer. And that sounds really harsh, but it's that aspect of you're going into your final year, likely of college eligibility. With Casey, we know he's going to get one more now. But
he's never going to be done with college eligibility. That's what Casey Thompson does.
but Matt Rule's advice to him was essentially, I wouldn't go into this. If you want to make a professional career out of this somewhere down the road, I wouldn't go into my final season of eligibility at a place not knowing whether or not I'm going to be the starter. You need to get film out there. You need to have NFL scouts or XFL scouts or USFL scouts or whatever you're going.
Arena League.
Yeah.
Shout out to our boy Tommy Armstrong.
Sorry, I don't want to discount the Arena League.
Indoor Football League champ.
But you want to be able to put that film out there for those guys. And Matt Rule's advice to him, just like heart to heart, coach to player, if I was in your shoes, I would be looking for a spot to transfer. And that kind of becomes the question to me with Kyle McCord. Is he seeing the writing on the wall with a guy like Dylan Raiola and saying, I'm going into my final season of college eligibility here. I don't want to be the guy that ends up riding the pine. And now I took a potential, second day draft choice, and now I'm third rounder undrafted because I wasn't able to get out there. The freshman came in and overtook my spot, and that looks really, really bad in the eyes of an NFL scout. That's the question to me. Is that the aspect, or is this the side of Kyle McCord looking at Nebraska and saying, you didn't tell me about Raiola. You kept me in the dark. We make it through a whole meeting on Monday, and now I get to my phone on Monday night, and I'm seeing, Nebraska is trending for Dylan Raiola. You're going after Dylan Raiola, and you didn't tell me. And that's the two sides that I don't know where we're at. Truthfully, I have my suspicions, but I do not truthfully know whether or not it's a case of Kyle McCord saying, I'm just going to find a better spot for me because I look at this freshman kid and I don't want to be competing for a starting job. Or is it that aspect of, well, they kept me in the dark, they have made me angry, and now I'm going to go somewhere else out of almost retribution?
Which, to be fair, option A is already something that Kyle McCord did. That's why he's not going to Ohio State, right? Like, he is leaving Ohio State because there is a freshman and some guys that are already on campus. If you, was it Devin Leary?
Devin Brown.
Yeah. Who's Devin Leary? That's another quarterback, isn't it?
That is.
Is that?
Was it the Google machine?
Yeah, I'm anyway.
Devin Leary, Kentucky.
I would say that's the quarterback is at Kentucky. So
formerly of NC State.
There's other guys at Ohio State already. There's Nolan coming in as the replacement for Raiola's commitment, basically.
You have the pride of South Dakota, Lincoln Kienholz.
Kienholz is there as well.
Another highly touted recruit.
So a guy that Nebraska fans thought that they might get in the transfer portal as well.
High school teammate of Jason Majacek.
So you've got a bunch of guys that are already there that are younger than Kyle McCord. He kind of saw the writing on the wall and decided to move on. So scenario one makes sense where he says, I kind of see the writing on the wall with Dylan Raiola. Don't want to take my chances with an open competition. I'm going to go somewhere else where they will guarantee me the starter spot. Going back to the Casey Thompson thing, which is weirdly going to come back up. And it's strange to us too. The way that the context that I think is important for the Casey Thompson situation is Matt Rule did not tell Casey Thompson to kick rocks. That is not what happened. What I understand to happen, and correct me if you've heard differently, but I think this is what you were saying, was they couldn't, especially coming off the injury, they couldn't guarantee Casey Thompson a starting job or a certain amount of reps or a certain amount of game time or whatever. They couldn't guarantee him anything, A, because that's not really how Rule operates, and B, because he was coming off the injury and was going to be behind coming out of spring.
Yes.
So they had that conversation with Charles Thompson and Casey Thompson at that point saying, hey, this may not be the best spot for you if you want to have a chance to play professionally, which all is true, right? To me, that's really important context, because what I've heard a lot over the last 24 hours, and maybe this is true, maybe it isn't, is that the Raiolas are calling the shots and they forced McCord out and whatever and all this, right? Maybe that's true. But we already know one thing about McCord, right? That he wants a spot where he can feel good that he's the starter, right? He basically wants to be guaranteed a starting spot, which in his situation, I understand. I'm not saying that as a negative. The other thing we know about Matt Rule is how he has handled the guy in Kyle McCord's spot before, where he said, hey, I can't guarantee anything. It's going to be an open competition, and whoever wins, wins. If you want something that is a guarantee, this maybe is not the best place for you. Is it crazy to think that those two things intersected yesterday and we ended up with Kyle McCord walking away? Because that's what I think happened, more so than, Dylan Raiola said, if I'm not going to be the starter coming in, then I'm not coming. Or if you can't guarantee me X number of reps or whatever. I think what the Raiola family wanted, from what I've heard and from reading the tea leaves, is I think he wanted a fair shot to start next year. I think that is the quote-unquote demand that was made. Hey, fair open competition. If he wins, cool. If I win, cool. Right? And you'll try and get me on the field when you can if I'm not the starter. Otherwise, we're good. Just a fair shot, because that probably wasn't going to happen at Georgia. I think that's part of the reason that Georgia was no longer in the picture. I don't think that it was all these demands of, hey, Dylan needs to play an X number of games and he needs to be guaranteed the starting spot or anything like that. But you match that up with what we know about Kyle McCord, last year of eligibility, wants to try and make a splash, wants to try and get to the NFL. Those two things don't jive very well, right? If Dylan wants an open, fair competition chance to play, Kyle McCord wants to guarantee that he's going to play so that he can try and make the NFL. Those two things don't mix. And so, yeah, it's going to seem like maybe Raiola made demands. It's going to seem like McCord shied away from competition or whatever people are saying. But really, you just have two different, in my opinion, you have two different guys in two different spots in their career that need two different things from their situation, and Nebraska cannot provide both to both.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think, is it crazy that it's just that simple?
I think it is just that simple. I mean, and I think that circumstances changed on Nebraska's end in terms of the Raiola recruitment between the time in which Marcus Satterfield went to Columbus
Absolutely.
and between the time in which Kyle McCord came to Lincoln. 100%. I think circumstances changed during that time.
Because the Raiola thing was last minute.
Yes. Well,
Ish.
I think it came together quickly.
Yes. I don't think this is something that has been in the works for months.
No, I don't. Right? I don't believe Nebraska thought they were back into the Raiola sweepstakes up until around this time last week.
Maybe a little later, but yeah, I think last weekend is kind of the timeline that I've sort of pieced together.
Saturday night is when I was told they're working on one big flip next week.
Yeah, I think I didn't hear it on Saturday, but piecing it back together, it sounded like Friday or Saturday to me is when kind of things started being like, oh, it might be a real thing. So I think yes, as you said, and I'll let you continue. Circumstances from when Satterfield went to Columbus to go talk to Kyle McCord, and by the time Kyle McCord got to campus on Monday or Sunday night, whenever he got here, dramatically changed.
I agree.
And so both of the things that you kind of laid out in the Kyle McCord situation can also be true in, hey, like, you didn't tell me about the Raiola thing, because the Raiola thing wasn't real for that wasn't a real thing for a good amount of time. And also, like, things were headed in the right direction. I certainly lean more towards not the sky is falling, because it seems pretty clear that Nebraska is about to get their highest recruit ever.
And that's why I think it's another domino falling yesterday in terms of, if you want more proof that Nebraska in Raiola is happening,
is a thing.
I think Kyle McCord saying, you know what, no to Nebraska is all you need, because it does not make sense for me. If Nebraska did not think that they had if not 100% chance, a 95+% chance at getting Dylan Raiola, I don't think you're going to both piss off Daniel Kaelin and Kyle McCord.
So Kaelin's the one that sent up the bat signal for me, where I was like, oh, this is real. Because, listen, I know we had Steve Wiltfong on Monday. He's great. I know he's like that guy, right? He tweets that out. I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. I was like, maybe more than interesting. Weirdly enough, when Pete Thamel tweeted out that he's been told that Nebraska has spoken to Danny Kaelin and they're going to honor his commitment, that's to me when I was like, oh, I think this might be done. Because there's no way you have that conversation with Danny Kaelin unless you are all but certain that you've got somebody to replace him.
And we had people yesterday on our show joining the live chat and calling in, and this is nothing against them. We're just a difference in opinion right now, saying, I think you're causing yourself long-term issues here by kicking Kaelin to the road. That's not technically what's happening, but you get what I'm saying here. Of you're gonna irritate people either at Bellevue West or in the Omaha Metro and in recruiting states in the state of Nebraska, because you had the in-state guy and now last minute you're kicking him to the curb and putting him in a bad spot. I think coaches around and most people that cover football and around football understand that the bottom line is winning.
Yeah.
And if you think Nebraska has a better shot of winning with Daniel Kaelin than Dylan Raiola next season, this is no discredit to Kaelin. Not by any means. I think he's going to be a fantastic college quarterback wherever he ends up, whether it's Nebraska, Michigan State, another spot. But you're looking at both the short-term and long-term health of Nebraska football. And you go back 2 weeks, whenever we were talking about Nebraska, Iowa, and missing a bowl game, what does Nebraska need to do next season? I don't think anyone out there was saying, I think Kaelin's your guy next season.
No.
I think Kaelin can be the starter next year. Everyone said you need to go to the portal, and if Kaelin surprises you, awesome, but you need to have that guy ready to go.
And maybe you want to keep Chubba around too. Like that's what people were saying with DK.
And that's no discredit to Kaelin. That's how most quarterbacks are coming into college. whenever you look at Dylan Raiola, that is a guy that has all the physical traits in the world. It's a guy that's been born and bred by his NFL father with guys like Matthew Stafford. And look back, Mike Bobo's at Georgia right now, and apparently he was trying to make an in-home visit with the Raiolas last night. Not sure how that went. But you look at that, like the guys that he has been in and around in his life, he has always been born and bred since he pretty much hit early puberty to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
And he is a fantastic prospect. I think Matt Rule understands that, and I think high school coaches around this state will understand Matt Rule's job is winning. He makes a whole bunch of money to make these difficult decisions.
Yes.
And the way I'm going to put it at the end of the day is you can hurt somebody's feelings without being the bad guy.
Sure.
And I think that's the fine line Matt Rule has to walk in this situation. A guy like Kalen that has been a great soldier for you in this recruiting class, you're going to hurt his feelings by going at the last minute and saying, we got an opportunity to go back and get Dylan Raiola again. But you can hurt his feelings without being the bad guy.
Well, and from all accounts, Daniel Kalen's a great kid. I don't know him personally. What I do know is I saw him a lot this year play high school ball, and he's not ready to be the starting quarterback in Nebraska or probably any other Power 5 school, to be fair. Not to say that he won't ever get there, but there's work to do. His prowess right now is better in the 7-on-7 field than it is on the actual football field. And he had weapons this year, right? Like I know the offensive line was an issue, but he had guys that he could throw the ball to, and there were still struggles. There's a lot of learning to be done there. And that's not to say he won't get there, but there is a night and day difference between Dylan Raiola and Danny Kalen. Like there just is. And that's not, again, like you said, not to say that Danny Kalen won't be really good where he ends up, but you know that Nebraska, like if this happened in high school, and sometimes it does, the exact same situation, all the high school coaches in the state would do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Like if you had, for instance, if Danny Kalen was moving into your district and you had a guy that was the same year as him or a year, whatever, that was already your starting quarterback, you'd probably take Danny Kalen. He's better than a lot of the quarterbacks in the state. It's a very similar situation, and all those guys would do the exact same thing. Coming up next, we teased the Casey Thompson thing a couple times. There's weirdly more Casey Thompson news. We're going to talk about that coming up next. That's Elijah Herbal. I'm Ravi Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. You can find us on Twitter and YouTube as well. I'm Ravi Lulla. That's Elijah Herbal. Our YouTube comments are, I would say, an accurate reflection of the fan base. Some people are totally okay, and some people are in full meltdown mode.
I would like to get into Kenny's comment here. Are you guys seeing this?
Yes. So I haven't read it yet, but I saw him.
I think this is an interesting one. It's the one he just put up as of like 60 seconds ago. He says, I am sick and tired of talking about these prima donna quarterbacks. Prima donna, I don't think that's how you spell it, but I don't know how to spell it.
I know what you mean, though.
We know what you mean. He said, let's talk about D linemen that can run, big, fast, nasty dudes who want to hurt you on the field. And I think he has a point, to a point, which is a terrible way of putting that, and I do apologize. But I'm going to use some other schools through the years that have done builds.
I think I know what schools you're going to talk about.
I don't think I'm going to go back to one way back when. Let's go back early 80s.
Okay, that was not what I was thinking.
Let's go the U, Miami.
Okay.
Because they beat Nebraska in that Orange Bowl, the famous Tom Osborne go for two before the overtime rules were implemented.
83 season, 84 Orange Bowl, yep.
You look at what Schnellenberger did down there early in his tenure. I mean, he really hit the Miami recruiting hard, which that was a different...
Yeah, it was a game changer.
It was different back in the late 80s because the rest of the country looked down at the Miami area in South Florida and said, a lot of athletes down there, those aren't football players. We're not going to recruit that. He hit that Miami area hard, brought in some talent, developed some physicality, but what changed the game for him was Bernie Kosar. Brings in Bernie Kosar, this really ahead of its time passing attack comes in, and it's not a perfect comparison, but essentially he took his team from being average to being great through a quarterback.
Well, I mean,
I'm not saying that a quarterback like Dylan Raiola fixes all your problems at Nebraska, but 70%
covers up a lot.
70% of your problems can be covered up by a quarterback. I'm going to go more recently and say when I said at the end of the show, I got a lot of flack for this one. Quinn Ewers at Texas.
Okay.
Has absolutely changed. I mean, Steve Sarkisian was pulling in top 10 recruiting classes, but he was still going 5-7. And it's not because he didn't get time to develop these guys. He had some development in there, but when you get the quarterback right, it allows you to pop.
Yeah, everything changes.
You go from 5-7 and losing at home to Baylor. No discredit to Baylor. That was a good Baylor team that year.
Yeah.
To going in within one score of Alabama the next season, and you were second season, you're beating Alabama on the road. Mm-hmm. That's what a high-level quarterback can do. And Quinn Ewers, I put on the same level as Dylan Raiola in terms of the game-changing nature he could have to a program.
As a prospect, absolutely.
You could not. This is a can't-miss guy.
Yeah.
And Quinn Ewers slightly different because he had that one semester at Ohio State or whatever that weirdness was.
Listen, get that back, Quinn.
Slightly different, but it's a young quarterback who comes in, and Texas, I think, slightly further ahead in their development, and they had some better previous recruiting classes, but Nebraska doesn't have slouches. Nebraska's an older team right now, especially that defensive side of the ball. Nebraska defensively is ahead of where Texas was at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a guy like Raiola can come in and clean up a lot of those issues that you have offensively and maybe not take you to a college football playoff next season. I think that's very hard to ask. Maybe not even a Big Ten title game, but 8-4, 9-3 should be 100% realistic with the 9 guys Nebraska has returning on defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
The offensive line you have coming back, the young weapons you have offensively, you should be able to do something with that with a high-level quarterback.
So there's a couple things there that...
And Dave asked, was I alive during the early 80s? No.
To be fair, I wasn't alive during the early 80s either. So that, but the...
Something tells me Dave was. So Dave, if I am way off with my Bernie Kosar Miami take, you can inform me if I'm wrong there. But
well, so let me put it in context of something I know that we're right about. Look at the difference between, here's a really easy example, and I get that this guy was a transfer, but look at the difference between all the Wisconsin teams that did not have Russell Wilson and then all the Wisconsin team that did have Russell Wilson, right? They went from being, they're a nice little team, they're physical, they're going to run the ball well, to Russell Wilson, Wisconsin felt like they could beat anybody in the world, and you felt like they could beat anybody in the world. Another example on the opposite end, a team that hasn't ever gotten their quarterback right, or not recently, is Iowa, right? They build through the lines. They're competitive every year. I agree with you there, Ken. That is the basis. That's the foundation, right? But if you have the lines right and you have no quarterback play, you have a ceiling. The quarterback removes the ceiling. Here's the other thing the quarterback does, like you were talking about. Let's use Caleb Williams as an example. That's not a very good football team at USC. It's not. It wasn't last year. It wasn't this year, right? That's why they got beat by good football teams like Utah last year twice. That's why they lose to good football teams, because they're not a very good football team. You know why they win still 8, 9, 10 games, whatever they won this year and last year? I think 8-4 this year, 10-3 last year, whatever it was. Because Caleb Williams plasters over a lot of your problems.
Exactly.
Right? So you've got two things that good quarterback play can do. A, they can raise your ceiling if you've already got the foundation. And if you have no foundation, they plaster over a lot of holes on that team. Let's not pretend like, and listen, I'm not saying Dylan Raiola is 2019 Joe Burrow. What I am saying is, let's not pretend like that LSU team in 2019 was perfect defensively. They gave up a ton of points. They gave up a ton of points and yardage to other good teams. Guess what? Joe Burrow was going to score every single time he was out there. Not saying he's Joe Burrow, but that's what a high-level quarterback can do for you. It can take you from, that's a probably 9-3 LSU team with an above-average quarterback instead of Joe Burrow. They had one of the best quarterbacking seasons of all time. All of a sudden, they're a national champion, right? That's what a quarterback can do. I appreciate what Ken's saying, though, right? And let's not pretend like Nebraska's ignoring that. Grant Bricks committed a couple weeks ago. Alexander Ruggiero, I don't know if that's how you say it, but I'm in the neighborhood, commits yesterday.
Well, and from what I was told, after the Bricks commitment, he was out on Nebraska. That's what I was hearing as of about 2 weeks ago whenever Bricks was in.
Nebraska was out on him because they didn't have a spot for him, is what I understood. And from what I understand is they got creative on how to bring him in. That's a pretty, I get he's only a 3-star, but that's a guy that had some good offers, pretty highly coveted guy that Nebraska, if Bricks didn't commit, was going to go after really hard. Bricks did commit. Ruggiero still had some interest in him. They go after him anyway. You end up with a couple good linemen in this class. Let's look at last year's class. Sam Sludge, Gunnar Gatula, Brock Knutson, Mason Goldman, all those guys, right? Justin Evans-Jenkins, who we've already seen play. 5 linemen in last year's class, at least. That's off the top of my head. You've got a couple high-level linemen in this year's class already. You've still got Teddy Prohaska, Ben Scott's coming back, Bryce Benhart's coming back. They're not ignoring the lines, okay? And the defensive line, I don't even know if I have to talk about. The defensive line was awesome last year. And you've got a bunch of young guys there. You've got more young guys coming off of redshirts next year. I don't think they are in any way ignoring the lines. I think we're at the point where they feel better enough about the lines that they think a quarterback can now elevate them to the next level. And let's be clear here. If you have a 5-star quarterback that might want to come to your school, you always take him. That's not a situation where you're like, sorry, Dylan Raiola, our lines aren't ready yet. We're going to have to wait. Maybe you'll hit the portal in a couple of years when we're ready. No. They're like, hey, 5-star quarterback wants to come here. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this.
And there's something I want to talk about because you mentioned it briefly with the recruiting crunch, the scholarship crunch Nebraska had with the kid out of Bishop Gorman.
Mm-hmm.
Very quietly last night, Jackson Lee, a 3-star from down in Texas, left Nebraska's class. He's going to Tulsa now.
Yeah.
Very, very, very
super quietly. Yeah.
I don't think that's a minor thing to note.
No.
Can I just throw that out there really fast?
Because you don't know if it's Ruggiero related or if it's other stuff related.
Well, the rumor, I mean, it sounds like Ruggiero is coming as a walk-on, and NIL is going to take care of some of his.
That's what I've heard as well.
His
that
scholarship
he
stuff
is not counting towards the class.
So you look at Lee, a scholarship off the board
at wide receiver,
a potential Daniel Kalen decommitment, another scholarship off the board. Why would Nebraska be clearing some extra scholarships at this time? Let's read the tea leaves here.
Yeah,
I've heard that some communication has been reopened between Nebraska and Brandon Baker.
So first and foremost, Danny Kalen transfers to Dylan Raiola, so that's a 1-to-1 switch, basically, right? So, but we've got a couple other ones opening up. So sorry, continue.
Just some communication has been reopened with a guy like Brandon Baker. This is what I was hearing yesterday morning. Brandon Baker, as well as the really, really talented wide receiver out of St. Louis, who at 7:30 in the morning his name has escaped me, and that is embarrassing because I tweeted about him last night, that being Ryan Wingo.
Wingo, that's right. Yep.
Another talented 5-star wide receiver.
There's also
something to just watch here is does Nebraska continue clearing scholarships? Because one thing that I know for a fact is that 5-stars don't tend to go alone to different places. They tend to want to bring their friends with them. They've hit the camp circuit. They have made friends throughout the country with other high-level players. They tend to want to team up. I'm not saying it's happening, but it'll be interesting to see if Nebraska tries to clear some more scholarships.
Especially quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Yes.
Quarterbacks tend to like to bring a couple wide receivers with them. It would be interesting to see what happens there on the Dylan Raiola.
Also been told there is nothing with Desmond Demas.
Yes, the 5-star JUCO guy.
Not happening.
Yeah, I don't think that's a culture fit, let's say, with Nebraska. Coming up next, we've got more of Hurrdat Sports Radio as we wrap up hour number 1 here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Elijah Herbal with me this morning. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet stage. You can also catch us on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. We stream on Facebook now too, which is a thing I didn't know until yesterday. So here we go. We said we were going to talk about Casey Thompson last segment, and we didn't get to it because I'm easily distracted. But we are going to get to it now. So yesterday, started hearing some rumors that Casey Thompson might be, that he was in Lincoln yesterday, which I think is verified and true. There's pictures of him with former teammates and around.
He also posted up a picture of him doing some physical therapy last night at a local spot.
So
he is
in Lincoln. Like that, we
can
feel
confirm.
Sure about the fact that he is in Lincoln. So, I mean, Elijah, I ask you this: why is Casey Thompson in Lincoln?
It's interesting, right?
It is
very, very interesting. And you combine it with some of the internet sleuths that have found Casey Thompson in UNL student directory.
Yep.
It should be noted that student directory is not always the most up-to-date information you can find. But what is interesting,
to be fair, I think Eric Crouch is also still in that student directory for what it's worth.
What is interesting though, is that Casey Thompson is listed as a graduate student at Nebraska, which whenever he left Nebraska, he was not
been the case.
A graduate student.
Also, I have heard, I haven't done checking myself because I feel a little weird looking up names in a student directory, but I'm not discouraging you guys from doing it. I'm just not going to.
Casey Thompson, though, pretty common name. Maybe there's another Casey Thompson that happens to be
also
at Nebraska that just happens to be a graduate student.
Was told that he is no longer listed as a student at FAU.
Yes.
Which is just as important as the fact that he may or may not be listed as a student at Nebraska. So what does this all mean? So we were talking about the Kyle McCord situation, how it doesn't totally make sense for him and what he wants, and for what Dylan Raiola and what he wants to be at Nebraska at the same time. What it does make sense is for Casey Thompson. He already took his shot at trying to put together a really nice season, get a professional career going. I think everyone's always kind of assumed he was going to be a coach at some point. And what makes sense for Casey Thompson at this point, you come in, you be a backup to Dylan Raiola, you kind of jumpstart your coaching career, learning under Coach Rule, under Glenn Thomas, maybe. We'll maybe talk about that in a little bit, but and then you mentor this young quarterback in Dylan Raiola. If something happens, God forbid, you've got a seasoned, experienced backup in your room. It sounds like there's smoke to this Casey Thompson thing.
And you also have Brian Munson, a recruiting expert that I know and trust. I know he's not affiliated with us, but last night he tweets out the original Casey Thompson to Nebraska Twitter post, which is interesting. I haven't talked with Brian at all since he has done that. I haven't asked him why he has done that. But why would you be doing that?
It's interesting for sure. It is a scenario that I think makes a lot of sense for everyone involved.
Yes.
And that's the only reason I put much stock in it, because when you really kind of pull at that string, when you pulled at the string, it fell apart for the Kyle McCord and Raiola coming to Nebraska at the same time. You can kind of logic your way out of that making sense. We were all hopeful, right? That would have been super fun. You have McCord, you have Raiola, you've got two quarterbacks, both 5 stars coming out of high school. You feel really, really good about your quarterback room all of a sudden. So obviously we all wanted that, but you pull at that string and apply some logic to it, and you go, yeah, that doesn't really make sense, like we kind of talked about earlier this morning. The Casey Thompson thing does. And even if it's not Casey Thompson, I do think that Nebraska will try and bring in a veteran guy who's okay being a backup, who maybe wants to get started in their career.
Anyone who wants to have a career in coaching would be very wise to spend 1 year under Matt Rule, especially after, everything we've heard about Casey was that he was an utmost professional through the coaching change last offseason, handled it very professionally, gained some respect from Matt Rule in that sense. Even if it's not him, makes a lot of sense for a guy to come back and play for Matt Rule. Look at what happened to Garrett
Bohannon.
Yeah, look what happened to Garrett McGuire.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
He was never a guy that was an impact player at Baylor. But Matt Rule took care of him because he knew he wanted to be a coach. He came in, he was a professional through his entire time at Baylor, gets an opportunity on a Matt Rule coaching staff at a very young age because, the Carolina Panthers, you're coaching guys that are older than you.
Hey, he's still coaching guys that are older than him.
Matt Rule took care of him in that way because that's what Matt Rule does. It is a wise decision on any quarterback that wants to go into coaching to come and spend a year under Matt Rule.
Well, and
be a tutor to some young quarterbacks in the room, and maybe get a graduate assistant spot. Maybe Matt Rule hooks you up with one of his friends across the country, which Matt Rule, as we've learned over the past year, has numerous friends across the coaching world to say, hey, I got a guy, he wants to be a coach. I think he's got a world of potential in that world. Can you help him out? Matt Rule can pull the strings like that. It's a very wise decision on anybody who wants to be a coach to spend a year playing under Matt Rule.
Or you look at a situation where, they're very high on a guy like Adam DiMichele, right? Maybe DiMichele ends up somewhere else as a on-field position coach instead of an analyst. Maybe Casey Thompson becomes an analyst. Maybe Casey Thompson becomes a grad assistant. There's a lot of opportunities by having Matt Rule kind of in your corner, right? This also goes back to the thing we talked about with how this played out originally when Casey Thompson left. There is no way on God's green earth that if it went down the way some people think it went down, that this is even a conversation. Because if it went down where Matt Rule is like, hey, kick rocks, Casey Thompson, we got this Jeff Sims guy, there's no way he's coming back here and being like, hey, I'll come and be a backup and be a mentor and get my coaching career started with you. the reason this is even a possibility, and I hate that we even keep having to do this. Like, I don't know how long we have to see Matt Rule operate to know that's not how he operates. Like, at what point has he ever done anything that hasn't been pro player, pro athlete, pro person? Like, he is, everything I've seen him do has been pro the person that is involved in that situation. So why on earth do we think with these two very specific situations, that with Casey Thompson and with Kyle McCord / Daniel Kalen, that all of a sudden he decided to act completely opposite to how we've seen him act, not only for the year at Nebraska, but according to everything we've heard, basically his entire coaching career.
And people took a tweet of mine way out of context from earlier in the football season after the Colorado game where I kind of made light of how Matt Rule handled that situation. I don't think Matt Rule, from a personnel standpoint, handled that situation poorly. I think it was a talent evaluation standpoint that he handled it poorly, putting all your eggs in your basket of Jeff Sims and saying, I mean, he's being straight up and honest with the kid and saying, essentially, I'm not sure you can beat him out. Well, which I think from a talent acquisition standpoint, a talent evaluation standpoint may have been a mistake that you're saying, hey, if I were you, I wouldn't want the competition, because what I saw from Casey Thompson at Nebraska and what I saw from Jeff Sims at Nebraska shows me there wouldn't have been much of a competition, assuming Jeff Sims played in practice how he did in the games, which from what I've heard, there was some indications of that last spring and last summer. That is the sticking point to me, but I don't think Matt Rule was the bad guy in this situation, similar to what I was saying earlier this hour about the Kyle McCord situation. I don't think he was the bad guy in this situation saying, you need to leave, we don't have a spot for you.
Well, and again, with the Casey Thompson thing, it's really easy to understand maybe the talent evaluation was off, that's fine. But even in doing what he did to kind of advise Casey Thompson and about the whole Jeff Sims situation, that was more for Casey Thompson's benefit than it was for Nebraska's. Yes. He was good to Casey Thompson and honest with Casey Thompson, even when it was not the best thing for Nebraska. Because the best thing for Nebraska was for Jeff Sims and Casey Thompson both to be on the roster last year. And rather than being like, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have a chance to beat him out and whatever, like, he was honest with where he saw things at that moment. And at that moment, he's like, yeah, with you missing spring, going to be real tough for you to beat out Jeff Sims, who we just brought in, is going to be here all spring. Like, that may not be what's best for you if you want to try and have a professional career. Would it have been best for Nebraska? Absolutely. But this is the thing we've seen with Matt Rule over and over and over again. There's guys that redshirted this year that would have been helpful for Nebraska this year. Mm-hmm. It was better for the guy to be redshirted than to play for Nebraska. Casey Thompson being at Nebraska would have been better. Like, if Casey Thompson's a quarterback at Nebraska this year, like 7 wins minimum. Like, I feel good about that. 7 wins minimum. It was better for Casey Thompson in that situation to go somewhere he knew he could be the starter right away. He went to a situation where Tom Herman's the guy that recruited him to Texas. He knew he could be the starter right away. Like, that's why I have such a hard time with people that are just assuming that Matt Rule just lit these guys on fire and was like, see it? Like, this isn't Dion. He doesn't treat guys as if they're disposable. And maybe at some point we're going to, get this stark reality that maybe Matt Rule isn't the guy that we thought he was. But he's been doing this for 10 years between Temple and Baylor and Carolina and Nebraska now. Haven't heard anything in a decade. Everybody that's worked with him outside of Panther fans has had nothing but good things to say about him. I don't think that other shoe is coming to drop. So I don't totally understand why people automatically panic and assume the worst.
And one of the things that Matt Rule told us at Big Ten Media Days, and we spent a lot of time talking Husker football here. I think it's because Ravi doesn't want to talk about Creighton.
I absolutely do not.
But one of the things that Matt Rule told me and Schmitty at Big Ten Media Days when we sat down with him, I asked him kind of a question related to Northwestern and Minnesota, some of the offseason drama they had. He said, I always run my program as if the ESPN cameras are always running. There's always a behind-the-scenes story. We saw that with the GB Rewind series. Mm-hmm. I do truly believe that he makes every decision as if the ESPN cameras are constantly rolling on the behind-the-scenes of Nebraska football and Matt Rule.
That is our number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Coming up next, we're going to talk to the play-by-play voice of Nebraska basketball, Kent Pavelka, get his thoughts on the season so far as we're almost at the third waypoint through the season, and see what he thinks the future holds for Nebraska basketball here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla, not Andrew Rogers, Elijah Herbal here with me today. Sorry,
Andrew.
That's a habit. We are live on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities. We are joined now by the play-by-play voice for Nebraska basketball. That is the legendary Kent Pavelka. Kent, how are you this morning?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for inviting me on the air. I like to listen to you guys, and I really enjoy what Hurrdat is doing and all the various enterprises. So, yeah, it's good to be on with you.
Well, thank you, Kent. And Kent joins us on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Kent, jumping into Nebraska basketball this year, I'm curious. I know you've been following this team for quite a while as the play-by-play voice, and you've seen a lot of different versions of Nebraska basketball. So far, 8-2 on the season, has struggled a little bit against the better competition on their schedule, though they got a big win against Michigan State on Sunday. How has this team performed compared to your expectations coming into the year?
Well, I don't think anybody really had any kind of a feel before they got together and finally got all their players together in the summer and went over to Spain. I saw a lot of potential the very first time I watched them practice this summer. And then they bowled out to a 7-0 record, and like you intimated, maybe not against some of the better teams that they were eventually going to face. And then when they met up with the Creighton Blue Jays, that was a comeuppance, no question about it. All the credit in the world to Creighton that night. Then the question was, I saw a lot of potential and a lot of talent, and we could talk about that. But after that Creighton game, we wondered, does this team have any resiliency? How quickly can they come back? And in the first half against Minnesota, the very next game, I thought they played their best basketball all year long, and they're very impressive when they're playing well. Second half, the bottom fell out again, and then you wondered again, do they have any resiliency? Well, that was answered when they beat up Michigan State at their own game in terms of physicality. And I don't know if you got to see that or listen to it. It was really impressive. And even though Michigan State is having a rough year, they still have a lot of talent. They were preseason top 5 team. At any rate, now we saw some resiliency, and now what I'm looking for is consistency, and that'll be tested at Kansas State this Sunday, I beg your pardon.
It's Kent Pavelka with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, talking Nebraska basketball. And Kent, one of the things that I think some people forget about with this Husker basketball team this season, it's a lot of guys that have not played much basketball together. Whenever you think back to the difference in the second half of Minnesota to the entire game against Michigan State, do you think you saw this team gelling and coming together? Because that's a big part of basketball, is being able to know what your teammate is going to do, expect when he's going to be able to cut, really just that team nature of basketball. Did you see a step forward in the right direction in that aspect in the Michigan State game, or do you still think there's more work to be done in that area?
Well, I think that this team is still looking for, like I said, some consistency and really a measure of confidence in terms of, what those kinds of, the second half at Minnesota and the Creighton game do to your psyche, collective psyche. Most everybody is having to play with new players now in this paradigm of the NIL. Everybody's going to have a new roster pretty much every year, save for just a few exceptions. So I don't think it's so much that as it is, playing collectively together and just having that sense about you as a team that, you've got the answer no matter how hard you get punched in the face. And I don't mean to turn this into, a bunch of cliches, but that's the best way I can describe it. That these guys, when they met adversity, I don't know that they knew how to answer it. And I think they're learning that. And so, they go forward now and play a tough game Sunday at Kansas State. I look at the Big Ten, and every night is just going to be up for grabs, with the exception maybe, Purdue, I think is a cut above everybody else. But I think it's a lot of evenly matched teams in the conference. So those intangibles, that growth factor in terms of being able to, play relentlessly for 40 minutes, no matter what happens to you. I think the team that is able to put themselves together in that respect, the teams that put themselves together in that respect are going to be the ones that play, after Selection Sunday.
Ken, I'm glad you brought up the Big Ten as a whole, because as I've watched this year, you mentioned the Purdue as probably kind of that cut above everybody else, and I tend to agree with you there. But as you've watched Nebraska this year and you've seen some of the other teams in the Big Ten as well, where do you think Nebraska, if things, I guess, go well or they continue to progress throughout the year, where do you think Nebraska what range do you think they can slot into that Big Ten conference?
Well, I think if things go really well and they figure it out and, don't have this yo-yo-like phenomenon happen all year long in terms of their, ability to maintain a level of performance, I think they can finish in the upper half, certainly, and maybe the upper third, because I think Purdue is alone in terms of its obvious talent advantage over everybody else. I think Wisconsin's right there, right behind them. I think Illinois is really talented, but you dip deeper than that, and I think, like I said, I think it's a team that figures it out, and I think Nebraska has a chance.
It's Ken Pavelka with us here, Hurrdat Sports Radio. And I don't know if I need to introduce Ken. If you can't recognize him from the voice, that's on you. But Ken, I want to get your thoughts on what we saw specifically on Sunday with the starting lineup. Josiah Allick unavailable on Sunday, and Juwan Gary got thrust into the starting lineup. Seemed to go pretty well on Sunday. Do you see that being a plan for Fred Hoiberg moving forward? Juwan Gary in the starting lineup, Josiah Allick off the bench, or do you think we're going to have a return to normalcy in that regard?
I think I'm just guessing here because I have not talked to anybody or been at practice since Sunday, and I don't know, but I suspect you're going to see Josiah Allick back in the starting lineup for a couple of reasons. He didn't do anything to deserve a demotion, but I think you've got a piece coming off the bench with the way they have it, the way it was before Sunday, that you're not going to have that if you change the lineup. So I just guess that it's going to go back to the way it was. And to me, it's so valid when coaches point out that who starts is an overrated kind of concept anyway, because like coaches will say, you want to know who I think my best players are, watch who's in the game in the last 5 minutes rather than the first 5 minutes. But Gary is a really, really nice talent, and he gives them another element. But that's nice to have coming off the bench, 4 or 5 minutes into the game.
Ken, I got to tell you, as a former basketball coach, I totally agree with the last 5 minutes versus the first 5 minutes. Real hard to convince 18-year-olds of that. I'm going to be honest with you.
But I think Gary has bought into it. Last year, C.J. Wilcher bought into it.
Sure.
If these guys respect their coaches in terms of seeing dividends for playing the way they're being coached, then they buy in and they get it. And if they're getting their 17 to 22 minutes, I think most of them are going to be satisfied as long as they're playing and they're winning.
Ken, we were talking about Juwan Gary here, and his efficiency this season, although only in 7 games so far, has been dramatically improved from any other point in his career. You see it in the field goal percentage, you see it in the 3-point percentage, you see it in his points per game. What have you seen from him that's led to that, and how sustainable do you think some of those numbers are as we go throughout the year?
Well, I think that the question about Juwan all along since he transferred from Alabama is, can he shoot the ball?
Sure.
I mean, you can't question his physicality, his athleticism, his motor, the way he can defend. Now, can he make shots outside the paint? And when he came here, he wasn't a real good shooter. But I think this is a real feather in the cap of Fred Hoiberg, and should, impress recruits, because he can bring people in here and develop them. And I think Gary's got a chance. I mean, he, with that shoulder, he came in with a bad shoulder, and that affected his perimeter shooting, his jump shot. but they worked with him even during the time last winter when he had the cast on and all that, on his balance and whatnot, and really shooting with one arm, and that served him well. But, at the same time, the last thing I want to see is Juwan jacking threes in the first minute of the game,
It's Kent Pavelka with us here, Hurrdat Sports Radio. And Kent, whenever you specifically look ahead to Sunday in Kansas State, this Kansas State team is not the same team that they were last year, but they're still dangerous. The crazy stat to me this season is in 10 games, already 4 overtime games for Kansas State. They have won all 4 of those, the first being against Providence, another overtime win against Oral Roberts, and then against North Alabama, and finally against Villanova. Already 4 overtime games, all 4 wins for Kansas State. Whenever you look at what this Kansas State team is this season, I'm not sure how far into your game prep you've dove. That's the word. What do you think this Kansas State squad is this season? What challenges do they present Nebraska?
Well, of course, they just lost certainly one of their best players. Tomlin's been excused from participating. I think you've all read about that. 6'11" kid was really instrumental in their Elite Eight season last year, and they really miss Noel at point guard. I mean, who wouldn't? He was really different and special. And then Keontae Johnson, who really should have been playing for Nebraska last year. Don't get me started on that. But those 3 guys aren't there. At the same time, I've been to Ahern a zillion times. It's been a while since I broadcast from there, and it can get. I mean, it can be in a den of iniquity in terms of atmosphere. So it's going to be tough. I mean, Villanova right now, maybe not the best they've ever been, but just like Michigan State, still very talented. They couldn't win there. It's going to be hard. They've got, they've got really good players. 3 of them right at 16 points a game. I think it's just the same old story. Nebraska, the Huskers have got to, wash, rinse, and repeat the way they played and the way it all felt while they played against Michigan State, and they got to do it for 40 minutes, and if they do, I think it'll be a good game.
Ken, based on the way that game at Minnesota went, how important do you think it is that Nebraska is able to go and get a Power 5 win away from Pinnacle Bank Arena?
Oh, I think it would be a huge win Sunday. Because, again, if the Huskers are able to, at the end of the day in early March, have fared well enough in the Big Ten to be in the conversation, a win against Kansas State and at Kansas State in non-conference play could put them over the it could be the thing that gets them in the tournament. And I know people think, it's pretty early to be talking about that, but hope springs eternal. And I really like this team. I love the players individually, collectively. I love the coaching staff. I think they've got more potential than any time, certainly since Fred's been there. And I'm just real hopeful. And I this would be a huge win.
As you look at it now, maybe an early preview of your keys to the game, can you give me a guy or 2 that you think needs to step up on Sunday for Nebraska to get it done?
Oh, boy. I think I'm
definitely putting you on the spot here, Kent. I do apologize for that.
That's fine. I'm just thinking about it. Rink Mast was kind of AWOL in the Creighton game, and he was huge Sunday against Michigan State. Reminded me of Derek Walker a little bit, the way he was passing the ball, wound up, I think, with 4 or 5 assists. I think that, he needs to be as effective game in and game out as he was, more effective like he was against Michigan State than how he, just wasn't a factor against Creighton. Bryce Williams scored 17 points, I think it was, in the first half against Minnesota and 1 in the second half. I mean, this is a guy that I think has probably the most potential to play on the next level, and he just needs a little more motor, in my opinion. A little, just out of his personality, to be as aggressive and forceful at all times as he needs to be. But the guy I think that might be the key to the game and the season really is Jamarcus Lawrence. You know, he's put in a tough situation moving from the 2 guard to point guard. And, you know, he's that's a lot to ask of a guy to also, oh, by the way, we still want you to score 15 points a game. But I'm seeing improvement with him. You know, the longer I talk about this, I'll mention all 13 players here. Right.
Kent, if you could snap your fingers and fix a certain spot on this team, would it be getting a true point guard in for this team? Because it does kind of seem like that is the missing piece to sort of getting them to that next level.
No question about it. I think that you know, like I said, I think that Jamarcus is kind of a key. You know, if he can continue to develop, and you know, he's really good defensively, and his assist numbers are good. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Eulis was the guy, and then you got the gambling thing with him. Mm-hmm. And I could go on and on this year and over the summer, and guys that were near misses. And you know, how about catching a break? You know, everything falls into place, and you've got all the pieces that look like you know you have a chance to get these guys, and then it doesn't work out for whatever reason. But yeah. You're trying to do it, and everybody's got a problem at this level. You know, warts in terms of you know not having all the pieces you want. But I think that's it for Nebraska, and I think that also that point guard is kind of in this day and age in college basketball, being a point guard is not what it used to be. You know, it's not the guy that brings the ball across the timeline mm-hmm. and pounds the ball to sleep, you know, and you know, and let's get it back to him. And, you know, on every possession before somebody, he's got to be the guy that assists on the shot. I mean, once you get it across the timeline, push the ball and see if you've got anything in early offense, then everybody in this offense is kind of a point guard, a point player every time he catches the ball, you know, in terms of, you know, looking for the guy with the best shot. So I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but yeah, that would be, you know, and you talk about how deep you are. All of a sudden you get third through the season and you think, yeah, I don't know if we're as deep as we thought. That yeah. kind of thing, you know. Everybody's got that problem.
Kent, really fast here before we get you out, I got to get your thoughts. I was going to maybe ask, do you have any insight in the quarterback situation? I'll let that lie for now. But Husker volleyball plays tonight at 6:00. You got any big plans for that Husker volleyball game as they're taking on Pitt in the Final Four?
You want a quarterback comment and a volleyball comment?
We can leave the court. We can let the quarterback comment lie. I mean, everyone's got a quarterback thought right now.
Do I look like John Baylor or Greg Sharp? No, I mean, can you believe the phenomenon that John Cook has created? Like Tom Osborne used to say, he used to characterize Nebraska football as, I think this was a great, you know, ad lib on his part. He said, this thing that we have concocted for ourselves, you know, this point of attraction, and you know the whole state's focused on it. Yeah, that's what volleyball is. So you know, I sure hope that they can get it done here in 2 more matches, and then yeah. You know, if you want to talk about Nebraska football and NIL, I'd be happy to be a co-host with you for like the next 2 or 3 years. I got a lot of opinions on what's going on in athletics. When I get done doing this, I want to do a podcast and like be able to really say what I think about things. You know.
Well, Ken, we may have a spot for you over
KP Uncensored.
We may have a spot for you over at Hurrdat. Don't tease me like that, Ken.
Yeah. Tell them to check the balance in their checkbook, and you've got my number.
Well, Kent, before we let you go, I do just have to say, you know, we mentioned football there. Obviously, you were the football play-by-play voice, and before that, the color commentary voice for Nebraska football for so long. For me personally, it's just a pleasure to talk to you. You're kind of the voice of my childhood. I used to listen to all those games and you broadcast them on the radio during those glory years in the mid-90s. So,
and I'll second that. It wasn't football for me. I'm a little younger than Ravi, so it was growing up driving in the car listening to Husker basketball. I have just great memories listening to you on the radio. I was a little starstruck whenever I got the text yesterday. We have KP on tomorrow, so it's been a pleasure.
You guys are too kind. You really are, and it's all been a great pleasure for me, and I'm just fortunate enough to be able to keep doing it at this point. So I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
That's Kent Pavelka. Thank you. Kent Pavelka, play-by-play voice of Nebraska basketball, formerly play-by-play voice of Nebraska football. And I'm not even exaggerating. I used to, because people your age forget a little bit. The games didn't all used to be on TV. Like, I literally would be in my backyard listening on a little Walkman radio to Kent calling Nebraska games. So it always is a pleasure when we get to talk to Kent. We appreciate him giving us the time there as well.
One of my favorite memories growing up listening to Kent, it still stands out distinctly in my memory. It would have been, back when basketball games were still played at Bob Devaney, it was number 2 Texas coming to town. I can't remember who was number 1 that week, but number 1 had fallen. So Texas was the presumptive number 1 team beginning the next week. And Nebraska basketball comes in to Bob Devaney that day. It's rocking. I'm listening on the radio. The game was on ESPN that day, but I'm listening to KP on the radio, and Nebraska's able to take down Texas in a low-scoring game. If I remember correctly, that was Kevin Durant's freshman year.
I think it would have been 07, I think, because that would have been the only time, I think, because when you were saying that, them number 2, presumptive number 1, I think that was 07. And that would have been Kevin Durant's freshman year as well. But the other thing that I remember, this is a super random memory. I remember being at my dad's software store listening to Kent Pavelka call, I believe it was the 95 NIT championship when Nebraska basketball won the NIT. So Kent's been a huge part of my life as a Husker fan growing up, and really appreciate him giving us the time and joining us here.
Bang! A ring!
Nice.
A ring!
Can you, do we have the got it in there somewhere, Shane? The Kent Pavelka, got it! Anywhere?
Is there still the Kent Pavelka soundboard?
The what?
There used to be the Kent Pavelka soundboard online with all the different Kent Pavelka sounds. That was always the best.
There we go.
There it is.
That's the one. Sean on the YouTube says he was actually at that Texas-Nebraska game. Best basketball environment he's ever seen. Good stuff there from our guy Kent Pavelka on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Real quick, I want to tell you about Warhorse Sportsbook. They're the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. You can do so in Lincoln at the casino or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha. You can place live bets, props, parlays, straight bets on nearly every major sporting event. Warhorse Sportsbook has you covered. Make sure you get the Warhorse Sportsbook app or visit warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook for all the details and full house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Coming up next, we're going to get a little Hurrdat hot seat. Get to know Elijah a little better here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Elijah Herbal here with me. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are about to do the Hurrdat hot seat. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's has 4 great Omaha area locations. They are family-owned and operated. They've been in business in Omaha for over 25 years, and they've been voted first place Best of Omaha for 18 years running. That's because they've got the latest technology to work on all makes and models, anything from your Ford to your Tesla, and they also invest back in the community. They give back with every car repaired. Go visit dingmans.com for more information. All right, it is time for that Hurrdat hot seat. As I mentioned, Elijah, I'll go first so you kind of get the swing of things a little bit here. My number one question for you, okay? I always tell people that, people think that people who are involved in work in sports are, these are not my words, but think they're kind of cool or they have cool jobs or whatever. The thing is, we're all giant dorks, and the thing we're dorky about just happens to be viewed as cool by society, right? Like, we're no different than the people that go to Comic-Con. Just our thing is sports. Their thing is comic books, which, I like comic book movies too, so I'm not, no judgment. But
comic books rock.
We're just as big a dorks as everyone else that has their hobby, right? What is the dorkiest sports-related thing you have ever done? And I can give you an example so you have time to think about it here. When I was in college, I was part of what I can only describe as a simulated baseball league. So it was like fantasy baseball, but everything was made up. Somebody had a computer program. I ran a franchise. So when I say franchise, I say I had a major league team, a AAA team, a AA team, and a single A team. All of the players were made up. Somebody was just running a computer program. Basically, I don't know if it was off of like a video game or whatever, but they were running this computer program and basically simulating all of the stats, all the games, everything. This was like a year-round thing. You drafted, you signed free agents. This was a huge time commitment. Then they'd give out all the results over AOL Instant Messenger. You like were part of a group, a group chat deal. By far the dorkiest thing I've ever done. And because it was literally just super involved fantasy baseball, but none of it was even based on reality. It was all based off of some guy's computer program.
Interesting. Okay, I have a thought that comes to mind.
Okay.
We were just talking during the break, naming off Heisman winners and naming off World Series winners. That's like the dorky, like day-to-day life type thing.
Yes.
But your story has reminded me that I have an app on my phone that I probably haven't opened in a couple of years. Now, I don't even know if it's still up to date, but it's just called CFC, short for College Football Coach.
Okay.
And what it is it's kind of like dynasty mode in NCAA football back in the day, if you remember.
Oh, but I remember.
But a little bit more bare bones. And I resurrected the Hawaii football program.
Oh, yeah.
And I took this game over 100 seasons. I am telling you, like, we are in 2160 something, if I had to guess, in that app. I won like 90 national titles.
Nice.
There's no reason for me to keep playing it. It's unfair. I get all the top recruits every single season because, I've been playing in the national championship game every single season. I started like reinventing my offenses just for fun. Like, we're going power running game this season.
It's like when you used to play NCAA back in like 2005. When you could get like 35 stars in one class, and it just was totally, it was totally imbalanced that way. So I did that with, and this is probably where my sim baseball thing was birthed. I used to do that with NCAA football. I would never play the games. I had no interest in actually like playing the games. I would run the dynasty, I'd recruit, I'd do whatever, and then I'd just simulate the games because I just wanted to see if you play the games, you can pretty much win every time if you're any good at the actual football game. So it's like, I wanted to see if I actually deserved to win. And so I would go through, and I think NCAA football stops you at 30 seasons. I think it like you retire, you're forced into retirement. They Bobby Bowden you after like 30 seasons. But 100 seasons, that's impressively dorky.
I mean, you can make it through a season in like 10, 15 minutes. It goes pretty quick.
Oh, does it? Oh, so that helps.
It's only sim games. You can't go play it. It's a very bare bones app.
Okay.
Not a great app by any means. But yeah, I went deep into the University of Hawaii and saved that football program. Turned him into an absolute juggernaut.
You love to see it.
And I'm like, my coach is like 160 years old now at this point.
Timmy Chang would be proud. All right. That's my first question. What is yours?
It is not sports related.
Okay.
So bear with me.
No worries.
I just know you being a big Creed fan.
Oh yeah.
I'm passionate in my own right about the Creed.
Okay.
I was actually talking to my friend Alex Kinnaman yesterday. Shout out to Alex. I doubt he's listening. He's down in Lincoln right now working at a bank. But we were talking yesterday about putting together a group of people to go carol this year, but only sing Creed songs.
With arms wide open.
With arms wide open.
Discussions were had. I think Higher was the first one we wanted to get right for the caroling.
Well, sure, yeah.
But my question to you is, if you could be any member of a band, we're talking the instruments, bass, guitar, drums, lead singer, what spot in the band would you want to be?
In general or of a specific band?
In general.
Okay.
Let's say in this fantasy world, you started a band with your high school friends and you are now world famous.
Okay.
What spot in that band would you want to have?
So I think the right answer here is drummer.
That's a good answer.
Because, it doesn't
sounds about right.
It doesn't fit my skill set at all. Like I am if I'm being totally honest, I probably want to be the lead singer because I'm a little bit, I've got an ego and whatever, and I like the attention.
We work in radio, of course. We have a little ego and a little narcissism going on.
I'm a Leo, so I kind of like being the center of attention.
Don't go there.
And so, if that's probably the true answer, but I think for me, that's probably the true answer. The right answer, and I saw a comedian do a bit on this, and I can't remember who it was, so I apologize. But I think the right answer is drummer, because he was using Coldplay as an example, which I'm a big Coldplay fan also. I have a very eclectic music taste. So, yes, I can like both Creed and Coldplay at the same time. But he was talking about how the drummer in Coldplay has all of the benefits of being in Coldplay, yet he can just walk down the street and nobody bothers him.
Yep.
I could not. The drummer from Coldplay could murder my entire family, and I could not pick him out of the lineup. They could be like, hey, it is the drummer from Coldplay. We know this. You just have to identify him. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't bring you justice, Mom. Like, that's like, I couldn't do it. And so you get all the benefits of being like super rich and super successful, and you get to all the cool experiences of like playing in stadiums and all that kind of stuff. And you get to be a totally normal guy as soon as you walk off stage. Like, I think that's the right answer. But I'm an egomaniac, so I would be the lead singer.
It's funny how similar we are there. I think the last one I'd want to be is guitarist.
Yeah, like a bass player. Like, come on, man.
Bass player would be fine. It seems to be a boring life. Like with the guitar player, you have to have like the guitar solo face.
Yeah, you gotta like make the cool guy face.
And have you like seen like the still shot pictures of a guitarist when they're in the middle of a solo?
It is usually not a cool face.
It's like it looks cool in the moment whenever you're in the crowd,
Yeah.
you're looking at it, and then you get the up close look at it, and it's not a good looking face. It's not the face I want to have plastered all over the internet.
It
or
seems
across
a little
the
bit like you're trying to hold in a fart.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the guitar solo freeze frame is kind of the hold in a fart face. So yeah, not ideal for like an Instagram photo or anything like that. But you're going drummer too, you think?
I think drummer. I was in choir back. I was the president of my choir back in high school. Actually. So I think I could handle the lead singer duties.
Yes.
Do I want that pressure? No, not really. Being the drummer, it'd be fun. I feel like you can be the fun guy in the band.
Yes.
Like when I speak broadly about a band, like if your drummer has a massive drug problem, like you're cool with it because he's the drummer. Like that's just the fun guy. He's the drummer.
He's that guy. He's the drummer.
Like,
he's fine.
Nobody worries about him.
He's fine.
Like I feel like it's the least pressure spot of a band, and like keeping rhythm, I can do that.
Yeah, I think so. Now there are definitely varied skills on drummers, but I think for most bands you can get away with a pretty basic drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's obviously differences when they're really good.
The John Bonham types.
Yeah, like you can get away with like a pretty basic drummer if everything else is good. Shane, do you have one? I hear you chiming in over there.
I would be the drummer.
That's the way to go, man.
A drummer is the offensive lineman.
Yes.
Of a band.
Yes, like
they're not sexy. They're not going to get the girls.
Totally essential. I mean, the drummer probably is getting girls, to be fair.
But I don't know. You get the cool solo. I mean, with the traps.
You get a cool drum solo.
You don't get the headlines, but you're probably the most essential part of that band.
Yeah, you're the backbone.
Exactly.
You're the backbone of the band. That's what every drummer will tell you. And every other musician will tell you who's the guy we could do without, the drummer. That is Hurrdat Hot Seat. We will continue with some more Hurrdat Hot Seat later on if we've got time. But coming up next, we're trying to make you some money with our guy Bryant Edwards, our Vegas insider, here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio as we wrap up hour number 2. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Elijah Herbal with me. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we're joined on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline by our guy Bryant Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, you still cold this week? What's going on, man?
Man, we got low 40s, brother. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, for your lows or for your highs? Because if those are your lows, I'm not super sympathetic.
Right, yeah. You're not super sympathetic. Low 40s, man. Yeah, pretty cold around here. How y'all doing?
It's hard out there in the state of Florida. We're doing pretty good, B. I notice a lot of times, and maybe I'm making this up, but tell me if I'm wrong here. I notice a lot of times you kind of tend to stay away from these Thursday night NFL plays. Is that intentional, or do you just not like the matchups most weeks?
It's not that I'm trying to stay away. It's just that neither quarterback is inspiring a lot of confidence with me right now. Easton Stick making his second NFL appearance last week, and the Raiders getting no touchdowns. Now, I know that, one might think, okay, a lot of these primetime games go under. But, man, you get a defensive touchdown, a big special teams play, 21-14, gets 35 and gets the over. So, it's not intentional. I just have no idea what to do with this game tonight, fellas.
Omaha's own Easton Stick. I mean, come on.
An Omaha native. You're on an Omaha radio show here. That might be all the indication you need.
There you go. Well, educate me, because I should have looked it up. Where did he play college?
NDSU.
North Dakota State. Set a whole bunch of records up there at North Dakota State. Now, if I remember correctly, he still has that famous video of him dribbling a football. That was him at North Dakota State.
Yeah,
if you ever see that,
he was dribbling a football like it was a basketball. Yeah.
Now, that's the same program as Carson Wentz and our guy that the Niners gave away a lot. Yeah, Trey Lance. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, they've ironically put in more quarterbacks in the NFL than a lot of FBS programs.
More than Nebraska.
Exactly.
By a hell of a lot.
Right? Any Nebraska. So.
We were discussing this on Hail Varsity Radio in the afternoons like last week. Nebraska, I don't think has had a quarterback throw an NFL pass in a regular season game dating back to like the mid-'80s.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Ferragamo.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Vince Ferragamo was a Nebraska guy?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that's
Did not know that. Did not. You guys are educating the hell out of me today. Easton Stick and Vince Ferragamo. I mean, I'm your guest. I'm supposed to be dropping the knowledge, but I appreciate you guys.
Let's see if you can drop a little knowledge.
They're actually the last Husker to throw a pass in a regular season game, though. Rex Burkhead.
Oh, you love to see it. You love sexy Rexy. You love Rex Burkhead. B, let's get some games where you can drop a little knowledge on us. I know that you're looking at the Bears and Browns. That is a Browns -3. Bears sneaky playing kind of okay though. What do you like there?
Yeah, no. Bears are playing very okay. No question about it. And look, with the way things are jammed up and actually both conferences, the Bears are not out of the playoff mix, but I believe they will be after Sunday, because I am feeling Joe Flacco and the Browns. I mean, this is not a play just based upon, Joe Flacco. The Browns are just playing good ball overall, and they've been outstanding at home all year, 6-1, both straight up and against the spread, and 7 home games. The Bears 2-5 straight up. They are 4-3 ATS on the road. However, 2 of those spread covers were in games they lost by 5 and another one by 7, which obviously with a 3-point spread here would not be spread covers with this line. And, the Browns, they beat the Bengals by 3 touchdowns at home. They beat the Titans by 24 at home. They beat the Cardinals by 27 at home. And then, quality teams like the Jags and the Niners, they've beaten at home. And I'm not going to call the Steelers quality team, but they also beat them at home. And their only setback at home was the Ravens, who, I think we would all rank in the top 3-4 of the NFL power ranking wise right now. And the Browns have been favored 7 times this year, whether home or away, 6-1 straight up, 5-2 ATS. So give me the Browns, but I'm also on the over as well. The weather's not going to be too bad, but even if it were, Bears and Browns are used to it. And I just think this is a really, really low number. The over's hitting 3 straight for the Browns, 6-2 in their last 8. They've had combined scorers like 58, 55, 41, 64, 44, 77. Over 7-6 overall for the Bears, despite the under being on a 5-1 run. However, of those 5 unders in Chicago's last 6 games, 3 of them would have been overs with this low number that we've got, 38 being the total this week that we like the over on. 3 of the Bears' recent unders had combined scores of 41 again, and 43. So, in other words, that 5-1 under run is really irrelevant because we're playing over 38 in the spot.
Brian, should I look at parlaying those 2 bets, or is that an individual straight bet each way?
Those are straight bets each way, but I'm all for anyone that wants to be aggressive to have at it. But I mean, that's everyone's choice. But these are straight plays each for me.
Bryant Edwards is for fun. Let it be known.
I was you know me, I like to get crazy and do some of the parlays out here, although not quite as much as Andrew does. He's a little bit of he's a little more risky than I am.
See, I love the UFC parlays. We'll get to that in just a second.
I was gonna say, before we get to that UFC parlay that you got rocking this week, B, Ravens at Jags. Ravens -3. I kind of tend to think the Ravens are a little fraudulent, but you like them this week.
I do. I mean, you know, that was a tough game last week, no doubt about it. But I think the Rams are you know, I think the Rams are pretty feisty, and with Stafford healthy, in others, I just don't think, you know, bad weather game, the whole deal. So I don't downgrade them after last week. And man, the Jags they've got issues, man, defensively especially. And for whatever reasons, man, the Jags have just not played well at home all year. They're 2-4, both straight up and ATS at home, whereas the Ravens 4-1 straight up, 3-2 ATS on the road. And you know, the Christian Kirk injury is a big one for the Jags. They've got a number of guys that are questionable as well, that, you know, probably won't know more. Well, I mean, we'll know more about maybe this afternoon, but probably more so tomorrow afternoon. ETN's among those guys. Zay Jones, Andre Sisco, their outstanding safety out of Syracuse. So the fact that they're banged up, the fact that Ravens are rolling, the fact that for whatever reason they don't play well at home, all has me liking the Ravens -3. Now, I know that some books are, you know, starting to put that juice on the 3, you know, at -120 or whatever. So for those that agree with me, I would say go ahead and get it today, because I don't so much like it at 3.5, or would want you to buy the half point to 3, which it seems like is probably going to get more expensive as the week goes.
It's Bryant Edwards with us here talking the weekend betting action. And let's move to UFC now. As I said it earlier, I love the UFC parlays. I love Leon Edwards in this spot. Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson's an interesting one this weekend. I also really, really like Andre Feely in this spot, but you're the expert. I want to get your thoughts on what you like in the UFC this weekend, because I've been told you got a parlay rocking this weekend.
Yeah, guys. So what I had Ian Gary along with Bryce Mitchell, who at last look was around -220. Now, a heads up, Bryce took this fight on like 11 days notice, but he was in shape. He was ready to get a fight. I mean, and obviously we won't know about his weight until tomorrow morning, but I don't think it's a concern. And Josh Emmett, now at age 38, off back-to-back losses, I think Bryce is going to be able to grapple him. And then I like Bryce. So anyway, Gary has got pneumonia, so him and Luque is off. So no longer do I have Gary on the parlay. I'm going to replace him with Leon Edwards along with Bryce Mitchell, and let's go with Alex Pantoja -190. So this is a 3-leg parlay that, apologies, I am just now throwing into the parlay calculator, because I saw that Ian Gary was off the card about 2 minutes before I was going on with you guys. So I am typing the numbers in now, and y'all feel free to chat away. And I'll have
you
that
actually informed me about Ian Gary. My problem is I'm a Broncos fan, so hopefully that Broncos game is over early enough that I can watch the main card. But the UFC every single weekend, I was really looking forward to that Luque versus Ian Gary fight. That was probably my number one fight on the card, but now it's off the table. And you informed me this morning it's no longer.
Yeah, no, I was really looking forward to that card too, and I was gonna do Gary to win inside the distance at a small minus. Okay, I got my parlay calculator. So because Gary was so much more expensive than Leon Edwards, we have a much more lucrative parlay here. So we get, for, you know, if you wanted to risk 100, you would get back 260 and 77 cents. So plus 260 on this parlay. It was plus 182 previously. So one more time: Bryce Mitchell, Alex Pantoja, Leon Edwards, plus 260 UFC 296 parlay.
That's a winner.
Well, we know you've got some college football bowl game action as well, but we are out of time. Where can people find some of your other picks, B?
At Vegas B. Edwards on Twitter or Vegas Insider. All my picks are available. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you, Brian. That's Bryant Edwards, our Vegas Insider. Make sure you go check him out on Twitter to get some more of his picks that we weren't able to get to this morning. Coming up next, we've got our guy, Michael Bruntz. Maybe there's something going on in recruiting in the world today. We'll see here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and on this third hour, we're on KFOR in Lincoln as well. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Elijah Herbal here with me. And we are brought to you by our friends at Pratt Dental. Dr. Pratt was the first dentist in Nebraska to be certified in the BioClear method, located in North Platte, Nebraska. The BioClear method and modern smile design can correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent and less invasive manner than traditional treatments such as crowns. That means it's less time, less waiting, less invasive, which means fewer appointments, because you can get multiple restorations done in the same day. Go check out Pratt Dental online and the BioClear method. It's prattdental.com/BioClear-dental-treatment, or just go to prattdental.com and find the BioClear treatment under their services. Pratt Dental, creating healthy smiles. Join now, a guy with a very healthy smile, our friend Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, how you doing this morning?
Not bad. What's going on?
Nothing much. I think it's been a pretty quiet week. How have you been?
Just trying to find things to talk about, right?
This is the quiet December that we all expected it to be at the at the start of the month. It's gonna coast right into signing day, and then turn our attention to whatever's next in the new year. So yeah, this has been these last 3 days have been a week. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Bruntz, I'm curious. I know that you focus on a lot of kind of different areas within your role for Husker 24/7. At what point did you start to hear rumblings of the whole Dylan Raiola thing?
Monday. I think that was Schaefer and I were talking about it, and in the time that we've been covering Nebraska for 24/7 Sports, which I believe now is 13 years. The only time that you could kind of that we could kind of remember just kind of a lightning bolt like that was when the press conference or the press release came out that Mike Riley was being hired as Nebraska's head coach. So those types of moments are rare, but that one there was a few rumblings, but I mean you're kind of at the point where you kind of moved on from that being a possibility, I guess. So there was quite a bit of doubt in my mind, and it was like, okay, there's really something to this in a big way. So yeah, it was. I think the Mike Riley press conference and having to be like, okay, Mike Riley from Oregon State, like that was the.
There's not another Mike Riley.
Yeah, that was the only comparison that we could really come up with.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. And Michael, whenever you just look at the week that has it been crazier? I mean, the Monday was crazy. Then you followed up with Tuesday, Wednesday, yesterday with McCord now out. Just the entire week as a whole. Have you remembered covering any crazier recruiting week in Husker history?
Well, there were a few during the Pelini era where there was one recruiting class where they got 13 commitments in 30 days, I think, in December.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, when you're talking about like the types of prospects and players that Nebraska is dealing with right now, I mean that it far surpasses anything that it's kind of had in the past. I mean, if the Dylan Raiola thing gets over the finish line and he ends up signing with Nebraska, I mean, you're talking about the highest rated recruit in the internet era that would be signing with Nebraska. I mean, that's unprecedented for the last 20 years. Kyle McCord, a former, 5-star quarterback you're talking about there. I mean, you had Julian Fleming on campus as, another 5-star wide receiver from when he was a recruit. So, no, I mean, it's the type of prospect that you're talking about is so totally different. And I think that's a good thing for Nebraska, certainly. But it also brings up a different kind of level of nuance that, you got to kind of get used to. And I think that's what you're seeing right now is just a lot of shuffling, a lot of dominoes falling right now with, what Nebraska, especially the quarterback position, is going to look like.
And let's quickly reset it here for listeners. If you somehow missed this yesterday, Kyle McCord was in town on Monday. Things were looking good. And then yesterday it comes out that he has moved on from his consideration of Nebraska. And it's big because Nebraska obviously thought they had maybe their quarterback for next season with his 1 year of eligibility. But the side note to this is Julian Fleming. They were kind of seen as a package deal to Nebraska. Michael, based on what you know and what you've been hearing, do you think Julian Fleming to Nebraska is dead? Does that still have legs? What is the status of Julian Fleming in all of this?
Yeah, I would not bet on that happening. As we sit here this morning, I mean, I don't know that it was ever just a straight package deal. I mean, those tend to kind of evaporate quickly, just based on how that's always kind of gone. But yeah, I mean, I think he has a lot of options. I mean, he'd been at Penn State earlier or late last week. He's a Pennsylvania guy. I mean, I think there's a lot of options for him right now. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of what it felt like was happening on Monday. Evaporated pretty quickly. But I mean, that's kind of what you have to deal with, I think, when it comes to the quarterback spot. I mean, Kyle McCord has 1 year to kind of make this happen. And then, I think the Raiola news breaking when it did probably wasn't ideal timing for Nebraska. And, now you don't have McCord. Fleming's probably not coming. And if you're Nebraska, you're still kind of trying to figure out what your last few pieces of this class look like.
Bruntz, as we move forward, I think the assumption for a lot of people is that Dylan Raiola is going to end up at Nebraska. If that is the case, do you think anyone comes with him? I know in the past there was a lot of talk about maybe him peer recruiting some receivers or other players to Nebraska with him as well. Are we too late in the process for that to still be possible, or are you hearing anything in that area?
Yeah, I mean, it's late. I mean, and that's kind of the unfortunate part of it is if you do end up with Dylan Raiola, you're not going to get any visit weekends after he were to announce, because signing day is next Wednesday. The dead period starts on Monday. Maybe if you have guys that hold off on signing and wait till February, you might be able to get something done there. But right now for Nebraska, you just don't get the benefit of that. And a lot of the guys that visited with Raiola on that big weekend last year are committed elsewhere. They're locked in elsewhere, and it's that would be a tough flip at this point. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking around, we're asking around, but the time frame of things doesn't really help Nebraska in that scenario. So we'll see. I mean, it might even be a situation where he's a big name if he comes to Nebraska and things go well. I mean, maybe that helps you in future classes. But the other piece of it too, Nebraska is in a bit of a numbers crunch right now. I mean, you've seen two guys leave the recruiting class in the last couple of weeks, which were largely numbers issues. So that's a consideration too, is Nebraska just doesn't have a ton of space in their locker room right now to bring a bunch of extra guys in that they weren't planning on going into this week. So that's also a consideration too.
Bruntz, with the short amount of time, do you think maybe the Dylan Raiola impact could be seen more in the spring transfer period, with specifically receivers maybe saying like, hey, there's a 5-star quarterback on campus, this all of a sudden is a much more attractive destination?
Could be. I'm eager to kind of see, this next time around what that spring period looks like, because it's really short. I think with the timing of when the portal actually opens, I think Nebraska is actually still going to be going through spring ball at that point. So, we'll see. I mean, I think that would be one potential benefit is like, hey, look, there's this guy at this school I'll maybe take a closer look at. But, with the way that the transfers are going right now, and, I think there should probably be a little bit of a correction somewhat in terms of how many guys are going into the portal. But, that's out there, I guess, that, maybe you'd get that spring bump. But, if you're Nebraska, you still need some guys to decide that are on the roster right now that they would want to go elsewhere too, because they're pretty full right now.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. And Michael, whenever you look at the Daniel Kaelin angle of things, he hasn't been swept under the rug at all, as it's been made clear to him apparently that Nebraska still has space for him and they will still honor his commitment. But now he's off to go take a look at Michigan State. As you forecast it right now, do you think Daniel Kaelin will be signing on the dotted line come next Wednesday, or do you think he's off elsewhere?
I would expect him to probably go elsewhere if everything kind of plays out the way it seems like it's going to. Obviously the quick visit to Michigan State and setting that up, I think that makes sense to me. When you kind of look at the arc of this class, Daniel Kaelin did a lot to get guys in the class to kind of do the peer recruiting thing. And, all of a sudden, your picture gets shaken up a little bit. I think he's definitely doing his due diligence and looking around. So, I would be shocked if he's a Nebraska Cornhusker next Wednesday. But it's unfortunate that things have kind of played out for him the way that they have. He's committed to Missouri, immediately jumps back in with Nebraska when the door opens, and I'm sure his head's probably spinning with the way things have gone this week. But talented kid, just an absolute stand-up kid. I'll be eager to kind of see what happens, but I would be very surprised if Nebraska ends up taking 2 quarterbacks in the 24 class, just given kind of the way things are trending right now.
Bruntz, speaking of the 24 class, Nebraska did get a commitment yesterday from Alexander Rugeroli. Am I saying that right? Do you know?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
You got it.
Feel great about
Nailed
it.
I feel like you need to say it with like the Italian Danny or the Tommy DeVito hands. Rugeroli.
I would say if I had Tommy DeVito's agent's hat on, then I'd definitely be able to say it correctly. But c'est la vie on that one. I know a lot of people thought when Grant Brix committed that maybe there wasn't room in the class for Rugeroli. Are you aware of how that kind of took place and how those machinations went so that Rugeroli was able to be included with Grant Brix?
Yeah, well, he's technically going to be a walk-on, coming in as a walk-on. But they found room for him and found a way to make it work. So, he was a guy that was kind of a late bloomer as a senior, hadn't played a ton of football, and really, was a high ceiling tackle. And if you look at the way that Nebraska's offensive line class is kind of comprised right now, or comprised, I always forget which one it is, but you look at that group, you've got a lot of guys that project to be interior offensive linemen. And the way that Nebraska's depth chart is right now, they're pretty heavy already on interior guys. Mm-hmm. And Rugeroli is a guy that, I think that they feel like they can come in and develop. They really liked what he showed his senior year. And, they've been keeping tabs on him for a long time. I know that Donovan Raiola has been watching him really closely throughout his senior season. Rugeroli came in, I believe, for the Purdue game as an unofficial visitor, mm-hmm. And was pretty close to pulling the trigger after that visit. And it was just kind of a matter of Nebraska making sure that they had the space and could kind of make things work for him. And it ended up working out. It's a big offensive line class, but there's a few guys in that group that, you feel pretty good about kind of what their long-term picture is. And I know, Grant Brix is some services have him as an interior offensive lineman. Nebraska's only talked tackle with him. So there's some flexibility there. But, I think Nebraska kind of needed to add a true tackle to this class that they could start to develop and get in that pipeline behind Gatula and those guys that signed last year.
I say this sort of tongue in cheek, but I just assumed with like 15 tight ends in this class that some of those would end up as tackles.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a possibility. They've got, and it's the tight end group that they have is really kind of an interesting group. I mean, it's different body types, different types of tight ends. I mean, you look at a kid like Eric Ingerson at Tapio. I mean, he could stick at tight end. He could, grow into a tackle. He could probably play on the defensive side of the ball too. I think you just kind of bring in guys who are, good athletes who, you feel like can kind of grow in your program and kind of see where everything shakes out. And Nebraska showed with AJ Rollins, they're not afraid to move a guy from tight end to defensive end, or maybe take a different look at where a guy fits. So that's an interesting group, and it's maybe we're not talking about this enough, but it just seems like Nebraska is like turning into just like an absolute tight end powerhouse. Like, I mean, the state itself. Like, there's guys in that 25 class that are already going to be national recruits.
Who's the kid from Elkhorn North that just got or has a ton of offers?
Yeah, Lofton.
Yes, that's right.
And there's other guys that you kind of know are going to be in that same group in 25 and 26. Miami is sending an assistant coach to Nebraska in December to recruit tight ends. Like, that kind of tells you, I guess, what kind of athletes are in the state, and that's a good problem. I mean, when you got schools like that coming up to recruit, that bodes well for Nebraska.
Michael, here to quickly discuss a story that's also gone by the wayside, aside from the tight ends. To get back to the offensive line, you have Bryce Benhart announcing earlier this week that he'll be returning for another season at Nebraska, along with Isaac Gifford. And I understand with the storylines this week being quarterbacks are sexy, quarterbacks are the ones that are going to get the name appeal. But I want to get your take on the impact of Isaac Gifford and Bryce Benhart returning for another year and what that means for the 2024 season.
Yeah, it's too bad that did kind of get swept under the rug. I think when you kind of look at the way that Nebraska's depth chart is situated for 24, you probably didn't have somebody at right tackle that you were just absolutely ready to go to if Bryce Benhart decided to move on. And I don't know that there's anybody in the program that kind of changed the narrative about themselves as much as Bryce Benhart did last year. He played really well. I think he really benefited from a change in strength and conditioning approach. I think he played, it was almost 800 snaps last year. Like, he played all 12 games. I mean, that's huge to have coming back. And then, on the other side of the ball, Nebraska didn't have a rover waiting in the wings. They've got guys in this incoming class that they feel like can kind of grow into that role. But Isaac Gifford was a leading tackler by over 30 tackles last year. He played really good football. A couple interceptions here or there that kind of went through his hands, and you're probably even talking about that season even more. And he was another guy that, these Gifford and Benhart combined played over 1,400 snaps last year for Nebraska. And having that leadership back, having that veteran presence back on both sides of the ball, that's huge. And in the secondary with Gifford too, I mean, you're losing Quentin Newsome, Omar Brown, who was really good last year, Phelan Sanford, who came in and kind of did a lot of things for you. So having that kind of a veteran back, that's really important, I think, for kind of continuing that upward trend for the defense.
And one quick personal story here on Gifford. His first varsity snap at Lincoln Southeast, he was the quarterback and I was the center, actually. It was in garbage time against Bellevue East. We fumbled the snap. He absolutely was livid about the situation that his first varsity snap was a fumbled snap. So what I know about Gifford is that he did not want his Nebraska career to end the way it did against Iowa with a missed tackle. They get into field goal range, they kick it and end the game that way. He did not want his Nebraska career to end that way. I don't know that personally from him, but with what I know about him, I think that is almost a surefire bet that would stick in his craw if that was his last defensive snap at Nebraska.
Was that your fault on the snap or his?
Next question. I'm not going to blame the kid that went D1 is all I'm going to say, but I don't want to take the blame either.
I'm going to put that one on Elijah. Bruntz, I want to switch gears for here a little bit. Away from Nebraska, because I feel like we've covered that pretty well in depth here, and we'll continue to as things develop. But I know we've talked all year kind of about you being a Heisman voter and sort of what that process looks like for you. Are you able to reveal retroactively who you voted for? Is that allowed?
Yeah, it was. Well, you vote for three in order. It was Daniels, Penix, and Nix.
Okay, so I was a big advocate of Penix as the Heisman winner this year. So the way I kind of view it, I'm curious how you looked at it as an actual voter, was I felt like it would have been hard to tell the story of this year's college football season without Michael Penix. I feel like you could leave out LSU and Jaden Daniels and you wouldn't miss a ton outside of an incredible statistical season. How did you view it that led you to vote for Daniels over Penix?
I looked at the outstanding statistical season. That's kind of where it went. I mean,
it was just overwhelming. The stats were just overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of Washington football, probably more than I should have, and Penix is a fantastic player, and there's Washington doesn't do what they did this year without him, and with the head-to-head wins over Nix, that's why I went with Penix over Nix, but yeah, I mean, I think Daniel's season was just kind of hard to get past, and I try to divorce the team stuff as much as I can, and just go with the best player. And for me, it was Daniels this year, so it was a little bit tougher, I think, than maybe what it's been in the past when I voted. But that was the way I shook out this year was with Daniels 1, Penix, and then Nix.
I think the hard thing this year was that you always hear it in the discourse around the Heisman. There's a Heisman moment for a lot of these guys. And I can't remember there being a Heisman moment this season. There's the one game where Jaden Daniels racked up what was almost 600 total yards of offense or some stupid number like that. And maybe that's the one, but there's not a moment that stands out in my mind this season as being, yep, that's it. That's a Heisman moment.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. It helps. I mean, it helps to kind of get to the front of people's minds. But I mean, Daniels was just so good all year, and he had those games, the really, really big games too that were kind of eye catching. I agree with you. I mean, and it's probably a situation too where it's like, okay, if LSU was a little bit better, or was actually playing for something, maybe you pay a little bit more attention to that stuff. But
yeah,
I felt like he himself was just a better overall player this year than those other two guys, and that's why I went with him.
Mike, before we get you out of here, I want to get your thoughts back to Husker football. Do you have any inclination of what the next shoe to drop might be? Obviously, McCord was the story yesterday. There's been a big story every single day. Tuesday or Monday, it's Raiola. Tuesday, it's Kalen's going to go visit Michigan State now. Wednesday, it's McCord. Do you have any inclination what the Thursday storyline might be? What might be talking about come 5 o'clock this afternoon?
I mean, the quarterback is going to continue to drive the conversation. I mean, you're getting to the point where you're going to have visitors on campus starting tomorrow, and then it's just kind of, I don't know if you're like waiting around for the smoke to come out of the chimney or what, but
a new pope has been named.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's going to be I'm very prepared to be surprised, put it that way. Just based on how the last 3 days have gone. But I think it's going to be quarterback until Wednesday.
Well, in about 10 seconds, would you like to say anything about quarterback coach at all?
It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
That's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, we appreciate your time as always. We will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
That's Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Coming up next, we got a little more Hurrdat Hot Seat coming up on Hurrdat Sports Radio. And we will talk to Bryant Appling, head coach of Buford High School. Dylan Raiola is high school coach at the end of the hour. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi Lulla, Elijah Herbal here with me. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. A reminder, driving is a full-time job. Phones, food, and friends need your attention when you are not driving. Your vehicle and the road need your attention when you are driving. Stop the distractions, just drive. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We are resuming the Hurrdat Hot Seat here in just a moment, but wanted to make sure I teased our next guest. We've got Bryant Appling coming up. He is the head football coach at Buford High School. That is where Dylan Raiola spent his senior year playing football. Buford High School is a powerhouse in the state of Georgia, have produced a ton of college football and some NFL talent
and
as well.
As Thomas points out in the chat,
yeah,
Gabe Irvin, Anthony Grant, also guys that went down to Buford. So I think we're going to have to get in a question about those two. I was like coaching them, but obviously the focus on a week like this week is going to be Raiola.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm mostly curious about what type of, or just what his experiences were with Dylan. Obviously, he wasn't there for very long, and Coach Appling has been there for a long time. He's been there for 18 years, since 2019 as the head coach. So I'm really curious to get some of his thoughts on Dylan Raiola and what's been going on. But before we get to him, we do have some time for a little bit more Hurrdat Hot Seat. I believe it is my turn. I think you got 2 questions in. I only got the one.
We each got one in, so it's back to you.
Okay, so back to me. Here we go. All right. So last night we're texting back a little bit, back and forth, trying to figure out the show and things like that. You tell me you're watching the Creighton game on your phone while you're at the gym. So I got to ask, what type of gym guy are you? Are you bodybuilder? Are you like a cardio bunny? Are you lifting heavy? Are you a CrossFit guy? Like, what are the workouts looking like?
I think the most apt way to put it would be I'm a functionality kind of guy.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Just in that I would like my body to be moving as well as possible for as long as possible. So I like to have a good mix. At the end of the day, what makes me happy in the gym is whenever I throw around a lot of weight.
Sure. Yeah.
So that is the best part to me. But it's been an interesting year for me. In the spring, it was all about a lot of cardio. I got a rucksack. So strapped 40 pounds in there.
Yep.
I went on a lot of walks in the spring, trying to get the cardiovascular stuff up just a little bit, get the leg strength up. This fall, it's been more of a bulk because I believe wholeheartedly, I don't have any science to back this up, but I believe wholeheartedly that the human body before the cold months is meant to bulk up for warmth.
Sure. Makes sense.
So that's been the fall for me. The fall's been a lot of protein and a lot of lifting heavy weights. But when I get into the gym, it's functionality. So I like the complex lifts, if you will, the lifts that work multiple muscle groups at the same time, the push press of sorts. Love me some squat. I hate squat, but I like to do the squat because I think it's good for me.
Sure.
But yeah, this fall's been about throwing around heavyweight. And at the end of the day, I'm not about physique. I'm not about bodybuilding. I'm not about, for the most part, being the biggest guy in there. I'd like to just be functional with my body and like my body to take care of me for as long as possible.
All right. So follow up here. You like throwing on heavy weight. What is the lift you are most proud of?
Oh God, I love bench press. I love bench press.
You got to give me the number.
So it was back when I was like back in high school. Right now it's nothing too impressive because I was focusing on the cardio in the spring, and Lord knows I hadn't been in the weight room since like COVID before this year. But back in high school, I hit 285, 290 on bench, which I know you have a little bit more of a bench press record. But
that's all right. But that's a good number though. 285 is a good number
for a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good number for anybody.
It was pretty solid. So it's not even close to up there. Thomas says, how do you feel about front squats? I prefer a front squat to a back squat, but like squat day is not my favorite day. I understand the importance of it, though.
We were talking to Callan Hake earlier this week. She was she represents Team Jack, and she was the Nebraska women's basketball lifter of the year. So I asked her what her favorite lift was, and she went front squats on me as her favorite lift.
I prefer a front squat to a back squat.
Oof, I can't even get my arms in that position. Like I had to rack
one finger
to rack the bar. I had to grab the I told Andrew this. I had to grab the lifting straps and like hold them like that because I can't even get my hands there. But yeah, man, if you are like a front squat or like an RDL guy, like you're just a sicko. I'm sorry.
I like
RDLs. you're a little bit.
I like RDLs. The one that's insane to me, which apparently they really like up in the college football ranks nowadays, is overhead squat.
Oh yeah.
Where you hold it above your head. Oh,
because you get the stabilization and the small little like micro movements. Yeah,
that is death.
Yeah, no,
that is the
thank
least
you.
favorite.
I won't do that with a barbell. I used to do that with some like dumbbells overhead. I would do some overhead squats, but barbell over at squats. No, thank you.
I have been on the kettlebell wave as of late.
Oh,
I like what I can do with the
okay.
kettlebell.
Big kettlebell guy.
Kettlebells are good.
All right, interesting. There we go. All right.
Shout out to my buddies Kip and Kinnaman. They're my lifting partners of sorts. Not every single day, but we keep it together. If they're out there listening, appreciate you guys.
Having
kettle chips are better than kettlebells.
Having good workout buddies is essential. That is the strongest I've ever gotten, is when you've got people that you constantly work out with. So that's always a plus. All right, what is your next question?
I got an interesting trivia question
for
you related to last night's junior college national championship game.
Okay, Iowa Western, congrats, national champs, back-to-back, beat East Mississippi. Well done to Coach Strohmeyer and company over there.
And the question is related to East Mississippi, because last night they fell extremely short. And congrats to Iowa Western.
61-14, I believe, was the final there.
They, though, were going for their record sixth national championship of the JUCO ranks that would tie two other schools that also have 6.
Ooh, okay.
One of these in particular, you might know, Will Honus, former Husker, attended this junior college.
Okay.
And it's also in a state that borders Nebraska.
I was assuming it was Kansas.
My question, if you can get either of the two, I'll give it to you. I think there's one that you have a better chance of getting than the other. Can you name one of the 2 junior colleges that has 6 national titles?
Is it Butler?
It is. Look at you.
That's the one I was going to guess even before the hints.
Look at you.
Butler Community College has been like a stalwart in JUCO athletics forever. Their football program's incredible. So that was going to be my guess regardless. Is the other one's not in Kansas, is it?
It's not. It's in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's not Seminole, is it?
Mm-mm.
Which one is it?
I've never heard of this one before today. I'm not sure if these national titles are of old. Northeastern Oklahoma A&M.
I think those are old ones.
That sounds like a Mad Lib college.
Because I think that's one of those that has been renamed and is now like a D2, I think, but we can look into it. What was it? Northeastern
Oklahoma A&M. And it feels like an ad lib because it's just like the perfect like direction, state. Would you like to add A&M or tech? Northeastern Oklahoma A&M college.
We are looking it up. I think it still exists. This is surprising to me. Yeah, I believe they still exist.
I'm looking up when they won their last national title. It is pre-1980.
Okay, so maybe we don't count those.
Their last national title was in 1969, whenever they took down Arizona Western by a score of 20-6. So it's been a while for Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, not the powerhouse they used to be, but
yeah.
Butler Community College was a real powerhouse, I believe, back in the 90s
and early 2000s. They're still very good, but they're not quite to the same level as they have been in years past.
And recently it's been EMCC, Eastern Mississippi, has made famous by Coach
Last
Buddy
Chance U.
and Last Chance U. Love that show.
Oh,
love
yeah,
Last Chance U.
All right, so another one here. We got about a minute and a half. What is your favorite guilty pleasure movie or TV show?
Easy. If we're talking real guilty pleasure.
Yes, like you are a little embarrassed to say it out loud.
Ghost Adventures.
Ghost Adventure. What is that on like Discovery?
Yeah.
So those are like legit the ones where they just like go to random places people say are haunted and look for ghosts with like the Geiger meters and stuff.
I can fully admit it's stupid. There's another show that was my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
When I think of guilty pleasure, I think of this show is stupid. I know it's not good, but I still enjoy it.
Sure, absolutely.
Ghost Adventures is there. It used to be Finding Bigfoot.
So you're like you're in the like quote unquote reality like search for the supernatural, like that's your sweet spot.
I used to like The Curse of Oak Island too.
See, The Curse of Oak Island will suck you in a little bit.
It will.
On History Channel.
I will say the same about all 3.
Yeah.
All 3 of those shows will suck you in, even despite the fact they're not going to find anything. This is stupid. They have just played me for a full hour because I go, maybe this is the time. Maybe they are going to find it.
Finally.
No.
And they always find just enough to string you along. It's like those stupid TikTok videos that are like 18 parts that should be 1 2-minute video.
So do I got to get my Bigfoot lady on for you tomorrow?
You have a Bigfoot lady?
I do have a Bigfoot lady.
I'm a Bigfoot believer of sorts.
We might have to talk about a Bigfoot guest here. There might be too much going on to do it tomorrow, but at some point, I think we may need to talk to the Bigfoot lady. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk to Bryant Appling. He's the head coach at Buford High School in Georgia. He coached Dylan Raiola last year. We will talk to him next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Elijah Herbal here with me. I don't know. We're here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We are efforting Bryant Appling, the head coach at Buford High School. He coached Dylan Raiola last year, trying to get a hold of Coach Appling there to join us. It will be on the stream if we are able to track him down. So waiting on him. In the meantime, there's been, I don't think any movement yet this morning. Yet. Usually these bombs have been dropped like mid to late afternoon, so I'll give it a few hours. I think you asked Bruntz this question. What do you think the next shoe to drop is? Like, what do you think happens next?
Personally, I think it's probably a Kalen decommitment.
Okay.
I think that makes the most sense before you take a Michigan State weekend visit. I think if I'm Daniel Kalen, I want to let the rest of the country know I'm open for business here.
Sure.
If you will.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get the buzz of you going to Michigan State. You're going to get, I think personally, a decommitment before you go to Michigan State. And then the rest of the country, there's interest. You can do that. That is personally what I think we're probably going to get today. We were talking a little bit off air earlier in the show about what a potential Raiola timeline could be. I think it makes no sense for him to wait until signing day.
No,
personally,
I think it'll be this weekend while he's here.
The importance of a 5-star quarterback announcing and potential peer recruiting implications, I think it makes sense for him to do it this weekend while he's in town or potentially directly before he comes to town. So I don't think that's the next shoe to drop.
I would guess.
And I don't think he decommits before he makes a commitment. I think whenever he makes the announcement, it's all in one. Hey, I'm decommitting from Georgia. I'm committing to Nebraska. Go Big Red. Or, I mean, we're at the point now where if he doesn't come to Nebraska, which I think would be an absolute shocker.
Yeah, I'd be stunned at this point.
I'd be stunned if he wasn't in Nebraska. But, like, have we reached the point just in terms of buzz where if he does stay at Georgia, which is a big if, that he'd have to make an announcement about that? Like, that's how much buzz there is about this.
Yeah, almost. And it would be weird at this point if he did stay at Georgia. Obviously, I think the heavy favorite at this point is Nebraska. All the things that we have heard and seen point to him not going to Georgia. There's reports of kind of a falling out with Georgia. I would be beyond shocked at this point if it wasn't Nebraska. And I think I'd be even more shocked if it was still Georgia. I'd be more shocked at him still going to Georgia than I would be of him not going to Nebraska. But I do think it is basically a foregone conclusion at this point.
I don't think Matt Rule would potentially run off both Daniel Kalen and Kyle McCord, as I said earlier in the show, if he didn't think this was a sure thing or damn near it.
Yes, I agree there. I did want to touch on Daniel Kalen here for a minute because I'm curious what you think the actual best move for him is, because we are pretty late in the process for him as a recruit to enroll in the spring semester and kind of be there for spring ball. Is it crazy to think the best thing for him, even if he doesn't necessarily think, hey, I'm not necessarily going to be able to beat this guy out. My future may not end up being at Nebraska, but I do care about the program. And just from a what's best for his future standpoint, is it crazy to think that it might be worth sticking it out for a year and a half? You still have the free transfer to go explore other things after that, because right now you're probably going to make a fairly rushed decision with people you probably haven't been talking to because when did he commit? It was a while ago that he decommitted from Missouri and came to Nebraska. I mean, it's been a long time since he's been talking to other people. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be kind of forced into a real quick decision if he signs on Wednesday with somebody other than Nebraska.
Nice thing, though, for him is you always do have the portal. I guess the same could be said for
him being at Nebraska. That's kind of what I mean.
My thought, and something I said earlier this week on the Hail Varsity show, was like, the way I'm selling it, if I'm Matt Rule and that coaching staff, and they say they're not into selling, they're telling you how it is. But if I'm telling him how it is, there's two possible ways this could go.
Yeah.
Assuming Raiola is the guy. One, Raiola lives up to the expectations. He's the guy you expect him to be. He's got a Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers type career, in which case you expect that guy to go off to the NFL after 3, if not after 4, but that's not a guy who's redshirting a freshman season if he lives up to the expectations.
Probably after 3, you expect him to move on. If he is who you think he is.
If he's not who you think he is, then you, Daniel Kaelin, have a chance to go in and compete for that job.
Yeah, why can't you beat him out? If he's not who everybody thinks he is, why can't you go beat him out?
That's the two ways these things go. Either he's a dude, he's a future NFL guy, and you with a well-timed red shirt will still have your chance to start somewhere down the road, which
theoretically for 2 full years.
Theoretically for 2 full years, and I personally believe that's the kind of development Kaelin needs, a couple years of sitting to be ready to go.
That's probably a realistic timeline for him to be a productive Power 5 quarterback anyway, is a couple to 3 years. Because you'd be talking about, okay, let's play this out. You've got Raiola as freshman, sophomore, junior. That would be Daniel Kaelin's redshirt year, redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore year. By the time he's a redshirt junior, he's still got 2 years of eligibility to play at Nebraska if that's what he wants. And if Dylan's not that guy, he could have an opportunity dramatically before that.
Yes.
Not to mention, knock on wood, when's the last time a Nebraska quarterback made it through the season healthy? I mean,
there
was
Tannerly.
Tannerly made it through healthy in 2017.
And before that,
I think Tommy made it through mostly healthy 1 year.
He
was banged up.
He started all the games, but he did not finish all the games.
Yeah, and he was banged up kind of throughout the year too. So, I mean, if you're at Nebraska, you have to assume you're going, I mean, really anywhere. You have to assume you're going to get an opportunity at some point to show what you have. People know I am not the biggest Daniel Kaelin fan. I thought, for instance, like Anthony Rizak was better in high school this year than Daniel Kaelin was. I was advocating for Nebraska to offer Anthony Rizak, obviously I don't think they knew this was coming, but with the way things have played out, probably makes sense that they didn't do that. But I do think that there's a better opportunity for Daniel Kaelin to develop and figure things out if he stays here, at least for the next 3 semesters, basically, than if he makes a rush decision, ends up at a place that, is kind of desperate to land a quarterback, but doesn't necessarily want him specifically. The other factor here, though, is we are talking about an 18-year-old kid, 17, 18. I don't know exactly how old Daniel Kaelin is. Is it possible we're dealing with like a bruised ego here and he just doesn't want to be here?
I just want to say, if you were keeping track if he was 17 or 18, I'd have some questions and I'd be a little concerned.
I have no idea. I just assume they're all somewhere in that neighborhood. But like,
well, it's funny. One time I did get flagged by Instagram for DMing a 17-year-old recruit because it's signing day. In Instagram, like, we flagged your account for suspicious activity, messaging minors. I was like, no, it's not that.
It's a football thing.
It's for work.
I'm not being a weirdo. But like, is it possible that it's just a bruised ego thing? Like, is that on the table that, like, he just, obviously they chose Dylan over him the first time around. He ends up committing to Missouri. Dylan leaves Nebraska at the altar back in May. Daniel Kaelin kind of comes home, if you will. This comes back around. He's getting, and it's understandable from the outside, but if you're a kid in the moment, you see this school continually picking Dylan Raiola over you. And I think we look at it and be like, hey, he's a 5-star, bud. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But if you're Daniel Kaelin, like, I could see him being like, hey, like, obviously, like, I'm not as big of a priority for you guys as I want to be. Like, I'm just ready to move on. Like, even if it's not the best thing for him, I could kind of see it if that's how he's thinking.
I guess time will tell, but the feel I get right now is he's not going to be a Cornhusker. Another guy I don't think is going to be a Cornhusker really fast. I know we're kind of getting up against it. This Desmond Demas.
Yes.
This has been a weird development this morning. He has put it in his Instagram bio, ball catcher at Husker Football Nation, which is Nebraska's football's Instagram handle. He has put that in his Instagram bio, but from everything I have been told, not only does it sound like he would not be academically eligible, I don't think he culturally is a fit for what Matt Rule wants to get. So this is something I'm going to be following today in terms of what the hell is going on here. Is this a guy that has been duped? Is this a guy that is trying to make a power play and get himself an offer, work up the fans so much that now the coaching staff feels like they have to offer a kid? This is a weird situation because everything I have heard, everything I've been told would tell me that Desmond Demas is not an option for Nebraska as a wide receiver transfer. Maybe I'm dead wrong on that, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense, everything that you've told me in terms of not being a culture fit and maybe not being academically eligible as well. Real quick, we only have about a minute and a half here, but there is one thing, and I teased that with Michael Bruntz. I do think the Glenn Thomas to Nebraska thing is happening.
Yes.
He is the former quarterback coach and OC under Matt Rule at Temple and at Baylor. He took over for play calling for Marcus Satterfield previously. I don't know if that would be the situation here, but I would expect Glenn Thomas, currently an offensive assistant with the Steelers, to be the quarterback coach and either co-OC or passing game coordinator. One of those two dual titles. I fully expect that to happen. I don't know when, since the Steelers are still in season. I don't know that they have to wait until the Steelers season is over, but I am expecting that to happen.
I am as well. That there's been some momentum in that direction in recent days, and there's I don't know. There's other candidates out there for this job, but that's been the most popular name over the past couple of days.
And that's the one that makes the most sense.
It's the one that makes the most sense with his Rule ties, his history, what concerns me.
And
analyst for the Steelers, terrible offense. What are you doing?
And with Matt Canada being fired,
yeah,
his coordinator on that side of the ball makes a ton of sense there. Shane, did you have something?
We are trying to reschedule coach for tomorrow.
Okay, trying to reschedule Bryant Appling, the Buford high school coach, for tomorrow.
And the morning hookup follows us in Lincoln. It's Greeny in Omaha, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Get my schedules down.
That is correct. That is Hurrdat Sports Radio for a Thursday. Elijah and I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.